Ladies, what is the most obvious hint that you've dropped that went unnoticed by a guy? Story 1. Had this ridiculously attractive girl sit 2 seats down from me in a college writing class. Some kid sat between us. RA girl proceeds to mean girl the hell out of this kid. Next class, he sits somewhere else. She slides her books over to his seat, sits down next to me and says, "Hi, I'm your new partner." We didn't have partners in this class. After class, she asks if she can email me a paper to critique. I give her my email address. She sends me her number. I text her saying, "Here's my number too, but I think you forgot to attach the paper." Never received the paper. Following the next class, she asks me to walk her to her car. It's 11 a.m. She claims to need to get something out of the back seat and then just sort of rummages around a very clean back seat, bent at the waist, calls back that she hopes I'm enjoying the view. I sort of chuckled, oblivious. She gets out, looks at me and says, "I'm a little surprised you didn't grab my butt. Maybe next time?" Following class, she literally takes my hand and places it on her butt, looking me dead in the eye and says, "Give it a squeeze." I've met predator drones less tenacious than her. What, are you supposed to violate her on the chance she likes it? Hell nah, dude. Missed signal or not, you did the right thing at her car. Story 2. As a guy, I once had a girl climb in my bed and cuddle, with me just thinking, she must be cold. Story 3. I met a guy in New Orleans, and after a lot of texting and talking, we wound up having a second date in California. I live in Colorado, he's in Florida. He had to run out to do a few things, and when he came back, I was rolling a doobie and some lingerie out on the deck of our hotel room. He legit just said, "Hey, you ready for dinner? Get dressed so we can go." I guess the guy was hungry, not thirsty. Story 4. I told my now boyfriend that I was attracted to him. He assumed that I meant that I thought he was aesthetically attractive but not into him myself. Same boy also missed me watching an entire football game with him in a pub, leaning on him the entire time, despite me saying I'd never watched football before and thought it was boring, and then walking home holding his hand as an indication of how much I liked him. The team he's supporting probably just lost the match. Not much can cheer up a man from watching his team lose. Story 5. Not a lady, but hints that I didn't pick up at the time, but later realized it was a hint. Number 1. Me and this girl watching a movie moves closer to me, puts head on shoulders, and for about 5 minutes in, she tries to hold my hand. I jumped, watching a scary movie, which I can't handle, causing our heads to hit, and she moved back to the other side. Number 2. Went on this date. Afterwards, I offered to walk her back to her house. It was a college town, so she only lived like 2 miles away. I get to her house. She offers me to come inside for a couple of drinks. I declined due to having plans with friends, and she proceeds to wait at the door for something. I didn't know what she was waiting for, so I waved, told her to have a good night, and went on my jolly way back to my place. God, thinking about how I have so many stories which just makes me sad. Story 6. To continue the trend, guy here. To offer a disclaimer here, I'm your textbook ugly duckling in terms of self-esteem versus actual attractiveness, apparently. The first year in college, I met a girl who was a friend of a friend of a friend, like 2 circles removed. She evidently had a fascination with me, and I got word back that she was joking about wanting to marry me after we hung out twice, in a group. We ended up spending more and more time together, and at one point, I offered to show her this cool little decorative Aztec calendar I got that was in my room, not thinking that, "Hey, come check out this thing in my dorm that I have to myself," had some connotations to it. We went and I showed it to her, and she was just staring at me. If memory serves, she was actually biting her lip. I then asked if there was anything else she wanted to do, like grab coffee. To my credit, I dodged a huge bullet there, but that's a very long story. I also got along great with a friend of mine, and I offered to let her stay with me during a rough patch in a living situation, and I thought she was way out of my league. So I really did take it as a joke when she told me she would suck my d for Dr. Pepper when we went out to lunch on that first day. She had a very offbeat sense of humor, so I don't feel like it was that much of a stretch to think she was joking. As I found out later that night, she was not kidding about that. She kept her promise. Best dollar I ever spent. Fast forward 6 months and we're exchanging wedding vows. That Dr. Pepper landed me a wife. So thanks, Dr. Pepper. Ads are getting smarter. Story 7. With the guy I have now been married to for 15 years and I first started hanging out, we spent a lot of time at a friend's house with the whole group. I finally got him out to the front porch alone one night, hanging out on the couch there, and I kept finding reasons to touch him and flirt with him. I stole his watch and made him try to get it back from me. We tickled each other, another flirty goofing around. He told me after we started dating that he called a female friend later that night to ask her what she thought it meant if I was flirting with him. One night, we were at his house watching TV late, and I kept throwing hints at him. No dice. We were literally spooning on the floor by the TV, and I finally just said, "Would you like to kiss me?" He's such a sweet, wonderful man. Glad I finally got through his obliviousness. Story 8. I was at a girl's house that asked for help with homework. When I walked into her dorm room, she was in her underwear in bed and said, "Climb in, let's do homework here." And I literally said, "I think I'll do it at the desk. That way we can write easier." Story 9. I honestly don't know. Because I assume that if I'm being obvious and it floats on by, that means he's noticing it all right, but ignoring it because he's not interested. So being even more obvious is just going to be uncomfortable and embarrassing. I know Reddit likes the narrative of women can always have what they want from guys, but that's really bullshit. Some of us, like me, just really don't want to get the wrong idea. If I consider the person a good friend, I tend to brush things off as a joke, even if I have feelings for her. Best thing to do for some guys is to just go for it, unless it's obvious that they aren't into you. Those are just my 2 cents, but I'm sure many can relate. Story 10. Well, I'm a lesbian, but ladies don't always pick up on hints either. On a third date, I told my girlfriend I wasn't wearing any underwear, and she just said, I guess it's laundry day, huh? Bless her heart. That's pure. Story 11. After weeks of him staying over late, he was friends with my roommate, so we could hang out just the 2 of us. I gathered up my liquid courage and sat in his lap and kissed him. We did that for a while, but when I was like, let's go to my room, he asked me, why? And with a complete poker face. So I panicked and was like, to finish the movie. The movie had ended. We both stared at the credits and then he was like, well, it's late. Can I kiss you one more time before I go? Story 12. On the first date I went on with my husband, we were sitting next to each other, really close. And I looked up at him and moved closer to his face and he said, can I help you? Story 13. I'm going to go out on a limb and say most guys aren't missing the signals, just they don't want to take it the wrong way. They don't want to be the guy who jumped to conclusions and is labeled as a creep or charged with sexual harassment, or mess with a good friendship. Story 14. Me at 10:30 p.m. after a date. Hey, do you want to come in? Him. No, I'm getting a cold sore. Me. Well, okay then. How about drinks later this week? Him. If the cold sore is gone. Well, it went away and we're still dating 6 years later. Dude was looking out for you back then. Keep him around. Story 15. Back in high school, I sent a guy pictures of my butt wearing underwear. He sent pictures back of his butt in his boxers. Totally clueless until we met up again in college and hooked up. Now we've been together for almost 4 years. I love my boyfriend, even though he missed my obvious advances 6 to 7 years ago. That is so freaking hilarious. Oh man. Story 16. I can tell you guys the time I almost lost my virginity in a pretty unexpected way. Almost. 16-year-old me, clueless to everything female. No girlfriend yet, nothing happened yet. Walking home from school, I was going to drop my bag and get my butt downtown to the skate shop, get me some new kicks with my birthday money. At the time, DC Shoes USA was all the rage. There's this girl in my year that all the guys are crazy about. She's kind of tomboyish and sporty. Let's call her Laura. As I'm walking, I hear someone call me by my name. Turn around, it's Laura. I wait for her, wondering why in the hell would she ever speak to me. Hey, Silva, what are you up to? Hey, Laura. I'm going downtown to get some new shoes at the skate shop. Oh, is it that store Big Punch? I wanted to go there too. Can I come with you? She's weirdly handsy and all smiles. I panic and say, yeah, that's the one. I guess you can come with me, yeah. So she then tells me that we just have to swing by her house so she can change and then we can go. In the elevator of her building, she tells me that her parents aren't home, all giggly. This is going miles over my head. I'm not putting 2 and 2 together at all. We get to her floor, get in the apartment. She tells me to wait in her room. I'm standing awkwardly in her bedroom looking out her window thinking, I don't want to miss the chance of getting my new sneakers. Suddenly I hear her say in this super flirty voice, Silva. I turn around. She's standing in the doorway, butt naked, doing this curved back thing, legs crossed, smiling at me. I look at her for a split second that for me lasted an eternity. I swallow a choke and I say, so, we're not going to Big Punch? Her smile instantly fades as she covers herself behind the door. A few seconds after, she comes back dressed. But then I understood what I had missed and tried to make small talk. She asked me to leave. Story 17. Not a lady, but a girl I eventually dated in high school asked me for a ride home. We get there, her parents are gone. We're hanging out in her room. She grabs my phone and puts it in her bra. When I ask for it back, she tells me to go get it. I was just confused. Then more confused when 10 minutes later, she threw it at me and told me to leave. Story 18. I had been on a few dates with this guy, and one time he was at my house and we started to hook up. Midway through, I said, wait, do you want to go in the shower with me? He proceeded to respond, no thanks. I actually just showered this morning, so that would be pretty pointless. Story 19. From a guy's perspective, I was having a casual drink with a friend of mine. I thought we were 100% platonic. I normally walked her home at the end of the night. I said something like, me, let's get you back home and to bed. Her, that's a bit forward, but all right then. Me, imagine if that actually worked on a girl. Her, yeah. Followed by an awkward silence. I was an idiot. This one hurts me because you were the one spitting game. Story 20. multiple situations with my fiancé, but I guess this is the most obvious one. I was in the bedroom feeling a bit horny, so I started to put on some sexy clothes and my kimono and walked to him. He was in our living room. I slowly opened my kimono, revealing the baby doll dress, and kissed him. I want you. I want pizza. That kind of killed it for me. Don't get me wrong, I love him, but he's not great at getting subtle and not so subtle hints. To be fair, it takes a lot of force to overpower the allure of pizza. Story 21. Honestly, this one has no redemption. He's my boyfriend of like 3 years, and I love him to death. We were out at a movie theater, and as it ended, I grabbed the last of the popcorn, went for the crotch grab, and then said, "Can't wait to get home." I slapped his butt on his way to the car and kissed his neck on the way home. Clear signs. When we got home, I went to the bedroom to get into something comfy, and this guy makes popcorn. He thought I wanted more popcorn. He thought the and fondling and kissing was me convincing him to make me popcorn. What the f? Story 22. Not a lady, but when I was in Australia, an American au pair and I went out for a date. We went to an Irish bar, I'm Irish, and spent a few hours together. Fast forward about 3 to 4 days and we're out for a third date. We headed back to the apartment we were both staying in, and she said to me, "Would you like to come over to my place?" in a seductive tone. I thought she meant for more drinks and got wildly drunk. I went to her place and spent the entire night watching classic rock videos and drinking Jack Daniels until I fell asleep. That's so hilariously Irish. Story 23. Not a lady, but I'm still amazed at the obliviousness of my youth to this day. Once in college, my date and I were on the way back from a bus trip party, getting close to a drop-off point, maybe 5 minutes out. Out of nowhere, she completely drops the conversation we were having and says something along the lines of, "Shoot, I don't know where I'm going to sleep tonight. Didn't put the sheets back on my bed after they came out the dryer." I spent the next 5 minutes in silence trying desperately to figure out why the hell she didn't just put the sheets back on her bed when she got home. And the bus arrives and she says, "Actually, I think I'll just go home." I still shake my head at myself for that one. Story 24. Met my significant other when I was 16 and he was 17. Have a home together, 2 dogs, all that jazz. Asked if he fancied having some fun. He replied whilst winking, "What kind of fun?" I proceeded to strip and he turned to me and said, whilst looking quite sad, "I was hoping you were going to ask me to have a battle between our Dungeons & Dragons characters." Dude didn't miss the hint, just really wanted to play some D&D. Story 25. A mutual friend was teasing the guy I was into, saying that he would never get laid because he's cute but not hot. I straight out said, "That's not true. I think you're sexy as hell." He turned to me and said, "Thank you, but you wouldn't sleep with me, so oh well." I said, "Yes, I would." And he said, "I'd sleep with you too. Thanks." Story 26. When I was 16, I worked at an auto body shop. My job was to drive customers back to their house and place of business after they dropped off their car. One time, a very attractive woman dropped off her car, so I drove her home. She flirted with me the entire time, and when we got to her house, she told me that she wanted me to see her house, which she just had remodeled. I said, "Okay," and followed her in. When we got inside, she told me that her back was itching and asked me to scratch it. I said, "Okay," and scratched her back. She then said that it wasn't helping because the itch was under her bra strap. She unhooked her bra and asked me to continue. So I reached under the back of her shirt, scratched her back where her strap used to be, then told her that I had to get back. She just stared at me. On the way back to work, it hit me that I could have gotten laid. Clueless 16-year-old. Story 27. Guy walking me home after our 6th date. "I would really like to have with you," I said to him. He responds, "Thank you. I would really like to have with you too." He then proceeds to walk me to my door, thanks me for the night with a hug, and then he walks home. I wonder if he had the worst, "oh crap," realization later that night. Story 28. I had a girl who I had a crush on who came to my dorm, took her jeans off and jumped in my bed. My thoughts? Damn, where am I going to sleep now? If that's a single bed, there's no room for me. I slept on the floor, fuming at the injustice. Found out later what she wanted. Never even crossed my mind. Story 29. Asked a guy out to a movie when I was about 15. Brought his best friend. I thought, okay, let's watch a horror movie so I can hold his hand. He told me to better hold his best friend's hand too because he thought the friend was scared. Years later, another friend told me that the guy I invited had a huge crush on me. I also kissed him on the lips once and he just thought I was saying goodbye to him like everyone else. Story 30. Girl here. On a second date, I invited a guy back to chat further and said my new silk sheets were very soft. He's into it. So we went to my place. After flirting for a half hour, he stops and says, "I gotta get going soon. It's getting late, but I want to feel your sheets before I go." I'm confused, but I go with it. We walk over to the bed and I wait for the kiss. Instead, he reaches down and pets the bed sheets, compliments how soft they are, and then walks to the door while saying we should set up another date. After he leaves, I lock the door and ponder. Maybe he wasn't into me? Maybe he's abstinent? Confusion and acceptance follow. An hour later, I get a text that simply says, "I'm an idiot." Story 31. I asked a boy I was dating if he wanted to be my boyfriend. He said yes. I thought that settled it. I found out a week later that he doesn't consider us boyfriend and girlfriend. Why? Because I asked him if he'd like to be my boyfriend, and he answered that exact question. Apparently, I was not clear on our status after. Story 32. It wasn't just one obvious hint, but throughout the entire night, I was flirting with X, and he was 100% not getting it. I was touching him all night, putting my arms around his neck, brushing against his arms, putting all my attention towards him. We were with a group of friends, laughing at all his jokes. I was visiting from out of town. There wasn't enough room for everyone to sleep, so he offered me his bed. I said to him, "Oh, you can just sleep with me, I don't mind." He slept completely stiff and on his back all night despite my attempts to get closer. The next day, I did all my best flirting again, and we were all back at his place to watch a movie. I sat next to him. I kept going out of my way to touch him, resting my head on his shoulder during the movie. I think at one point I had my hand in his lap. That night we were back in his bed and I finally just made a move and kissed him. We just kissed, nothing else. We've been together for 13 years and married for 10. We joke about those 2 nights so much. He said to me he thought I was just being nice and didn't realize I liked him in that way. He had no idea. He's really shy and insecure. I'm glad I finally just made the move myself. Story 33. I said, "So, you're a wrestler? How about you show me some wrestling moves?" It was 1 a.m. We were at his place after going out drinking, and it was our second date. I was cuddling next to him on the couch, and he was the captain of the wrestling team at our college. What did he do? Proceeds to show me basic wrestling moves. Okay, so this is your stance. He's now my husband and we have a kid, so he figured it out eventually. Story 34. A girl told me that it would be a lot safer for me to spend the night with her than drive home. It's really a short walk and I can get to my car in the morning. She was very disappointed, but the truth was that I had a massive wet poop trying to explode out of my butt, which I was barely containing, and this was not an experience I wanted to share in a hotel room with a woman I had just met.
What is the most obvious hint you've dropped that went unnoticed by a guy? She knocks on my dorm room door, carrying a chocolate cake. She said she just baked it and was wondering if I'd like to try some. I tell her that I'm not a big fan of chocolate, which disappoints her, but I'm smart enough to add that I'd like to try it anyway. She set the cake aside and I invited her in. I was about to start watching V for Vendetta when she excitedly said she loves that movie, asking if she can watch it with me. We settled down in my unfolded futon and started watching it together under a blanket. It was the middle of the Boston winter after all. As we watch the movie, she makes lots of comments about Hugo Weaving. I love Hugo Weaving so much. God, Hugo Weaving is so hot. Man, Hugo Weaving makes me so excited. Meanwhile, I'm saying things like, yeah, he's a great actor. I loved him in The Matrix. Maybe 20 minutes go by and suddenly I feel her going up against me. Sorry, I hope you don't mind, she says. I just got really excited and couldn't help myself. I'm thinking of the luckiest guy in the world and feeling glad I picked a movie with Hugo Weaving in it. Of course, I say something like, that's okay. I understand. I have actresses that really do that for me too. And I do absolutely nothing because I still don't get that she's coming on to me. Another 10 minutes of this pass before she just turns to me and asks, can I be intimate with you? In my mind, my very underdeveloped, inexperienced mind, my very first thoughts were, Hugo Weaving is such a great matchmaker. And talk about being in the right place at the right time. It took me another year before I realized it was all a strategy to get close to me. And I could have been watching any movie at all with more or less than the same outcome. Dude, I mean, I get other guys not getting hints, but all those hints just peppered on your face. Man, how dense can you be? It's crazy. Story 2. My former best friend and I were incredibly close. So close, in fact, that I fell in love with her, and she seemed to feel the same way about me. We started spending more time together in the evenings, sometimes late into the night. We'd watch movies, hang out, and she became more direct about her interest in me. Once when she was dressing up for a party, she suddenly told me I didn't need to leave the room and she was changing. She became very affectionate on the couch while watching movies, and I thought, I could make a move, but I'm really happy with our friendship. Even when we went out partying and the guy started dancing with her, she said something to him, pointed at me, and the guy ran off. I assumed she wasn't interested in him. The peak of my missed opportunities came one night when we ordered food and talked about how if someone insists on someone else staying over, even if they don't live far away, it's a clear hint. Later that evening, as I was about to walk home, a 25-minute walk at most, she said, you know, you can sleep here. We're all alone. Her mother was often away at her boyfriend's place, but I replied, nah, I'm good. It's not that far. These two conversations were only about 5 to 10 minutes apart. Adding to my cluelessness, for her 21st birthday, I gave her an iPhone. In front of everyone, she hugged me, said only one thing could make the moment perfect, and looked deeply into my eyes. I did nothing. If I had a time machine, I'd go back and kick myself for not responding correctly. It could have been the start of a wonderful relationship. Damn, another one. That's crazy, bro. How many of you are there? Story 3. My roommates and I used to host a lot of parties at our apartment. Sometimes as many as 2 a week. Through these parties, you meet a lot of people, but one girl in particular caught my attention. She was about 5'5", fit, and very attractive, often wearing stylish outfits that showed off her figure. She became a regular at our place, and we would talk frequently. At one party, I mentioned I had a special bottle of liquor in my room for special occasions. She expressed interest in trying it, so we went to my bedroom. Once there, we had a drink. She noticed my Julian Edelman jersey, seeing she was a big fan. She asked to try it on in front of me without hesitation. She climbed into my bed, and I joined her. I was too nervous to make a move. I was still inexperienced at the time, so I lacked confidence. Eventually, she got up and we left the room. That was the end of it. Story 4. When my now boyfriend and I were just friends, I spent a night at his apartment after hanging out all day. I was supposed to sleep on the couch, but I managed to convince him to let me stay in his room. I think I mentioned his roommate or neighbors were too loud. He got up to get me a pillow and blanket so I could sleep on his floor. After a while, I joked about him hogging the blankets in his bed, and he invited me up. I then said I couldn't sleep and suggested we stay up to watch a movie. I'd read that Jurassic Park was a good movie for a date, so I suggested it, not mentioning that part. We were in his bed, him holding the phone above us, and I leaned in his shoulder, slowly getting closer. We lay there all night, curled up but barely touching, neither of us making a move. We fell asleep. He didn't ask me out until about 5 months later. We reenacted the scene in a hotel bed after sneaking a bottle of wine from his office Christmas party. This time, I decided to be more forward. After some wine, I felt brave enough to look into his eyes and kiss him. Later, we admitted our hesitation the first night was due to nerves about risking our friendship. The only concern about starting a relationship was the distance between us, as we lived almost 2 hours apart. But less than a week after that, I took a bus to stay with him for another night. I told him I loved him and that we should try being together anyway. We've been together since and have moved in together. One time after we moved in together, I got out of the shower, dried off, and went to the bedroom. The partner was on the bed, half sitting, half lying, reading something. I straddled him and he kept reading. I wiggled my hips and made playful banter, and he got relaxed but kept reading, not looking at me. After several minutes of playful hints, getting nothing back, I thought he must not want to be intimate for some reason. I stopped being playful, put on pajamas, and went to find something to take my mind off intimacy. The next morning he complained of blues, and I asked why he hadn't just been intimate with me if he was interested. He said he didn't want to offend me or make me feel self-conscious by staring. I asked if the wiggling, banter, and my usual interest in intimacy after evening showers didn't give him any clues. He mentioned not wanting to assume, thinking it was his problem. He always misses clues even when they're ridiculously obvious. Showing off new clothing when I only wear it for special occasions doesn't always get the desired response. Story 5. I had this guy friend I accidentally fell for a while back. A year into knowing each other, we hit that weird stage of flirtatious banter in our friendship that's usually reached when both parties are sort of attracted to each other, but nobody really has the guts to make the first move. About half a year, it got to ridiculous heights. Ironically calling each other sweetheart and darling, playful touching, just generally lots of casual touching. At that point, most of the regulars in the bar we frequented just kind of assumed we were dating already. But no, still neither of us dared to actually make the first move. At this point, it had just kind of become routine for me to come up with some kind of flimsy excuse, like not wanting to walk all the way back home and for him to invite me to spend the night at his place if we happened to run into each other at the aforementioned bar. I figured he would catch on eventually. But still, no attempts to take this strange not dating thing to the next level were made. I'd sit on his bed, changing into his t-shirt while he was in the same room. We'd cuddle up and go to sleep, then spend the next morning still cuddle up, just talking about anything that came to mind. When even my most obvious attempts at provoking him to action either failed or were met with mild amusement, I accepted the fact that apparently I'd missed the friend zone by a mile. I went straight into the zone of sentient cuddle blanket and that it was time to bury these pesky little feelings and move on with my life. This man obviously did not feel a single ounce of attraction towards me. So another year passes. No more flirting, no more cuddling, most importantly, no more sleepovers. And since he didn't seem to mind, I considered my assumptions confirmed. You can smell the not-so-surprising-at-all plot twist from a mile away, can't you? Cue to another evening in that faithful bar. Drinks were consumed, random incidents were brought up, jokes that bore a little too much truth were made, and somehow the two of us found ourselves in the midst of a conversation about times past we were neither sober nor sensible enough to hold. And this guy says the fateful words. Yeah, I used to be really attracted to you, but I just didn't think you were interested. Mind you, this was said to me by the man who had me sitting on his lap while wearing his clothes. And that, dear fellows, is how I learned to never underestimate the power of male obliviousness. At least it makes for a mildly entertaining anecdote. Story 6. A coworker, who was also a recent graduate, mentioned she was donating clothes near her place to her friend in the next building and asked if she could see me. I went downstairs and we sat on a bench to talk. She quickly asked if we could go upstairs, so we did. I talked to her, played a few songs on the guitar, served her dessert, and we talked some more. There was a moment when she was lying on my bed, playing with her hair and smiling at me, and I thought, I think I did a good job hosting and entertaining you. So now what? I didn't say it out loud, but she left frustrated, saying, You are clueless. There was even a moment when I gave her the guitar because I remembered seeing a picture of her with one, thinking she could play. She couldn't, and she struggled to put it back on the wall mount. That's a simple task, but she wanted my help, sticking her body out and waiting for me to assist her. I managed to help her without touching her, thinking, Good job. You didn't take advantage of the situation and potentially make her uncomfortable. So he had a coworker lying in his bed, playing with her hair and smiling at him. His big takeaway was, I think I did a good job hosting. That's like having a masterpiece painting in your living room and thinking, This really brightens up the place. Story 7. My ex and I had a secret code for when we wanted to be intimate and couldn't find the right moment to say so in public. The code was, Hey, is it 3:30 yet? No matter the actual time, we check a clock and say yes, then leave as if we had an appointment. Many of her friends never caught on, and we often left them confused by suddenly asking if it was 3:30 and then taking off. One night we were with friends, enjoying drinks, games, and music. She was playing with my hair, holding a drink in her other hand, and she asked, Is it 3:30 yet? I checked my phone and it was around 3, but not exactly 3:30. The drink and the close timing threw me off and I said, Nah, it's 3-something. I continued the conversation, not realizing my mistake. She burst into laughter and said, Okay. Later that night, as I entered the room where she was sleeping, she tripped me and said, Next time I ask if it's 3:30, you better pull out something else instead of your phone or we're going to have issues. Being intimate with her was amazing, but her desire was higher than mine, which was part of why we're not together anymore. I facepalmed, realizing I had been a dummy. Story 8. I had a partner in microbiology whom I was attracted to. I asked to see his dorm, wearing just shorts and a tank top. I talked about our lab report and future classes, moving on to him for 15 minutes before giving up. Later, he asked why we never had a thing, and I facepalmed, hard. I also reconnected with an ex. We met weekly at a bar to drink and vent about life for about 2 months. I gave him flirty looks and stood close when saying goodbye, but he never got the hint. Finally, I bluntly asked, Do you want to be intimate with me? His jaw dropped and he said, Oh, yes. I met a cute guy online, and our first date went well. On our second date at a street art festival with friends, I played the cool girl, getting everyone free drinks and us into clubs for free. Friends commented on how cute we looked together, and his friends kept pushing us closer. I made suggestive remarks, but he was oblivious, thinking I was just complimenting him. When the party ended, I said, I'm going home. Can you drive me? He thought I was too hammered to drive and offered to take me home, even suggesting we call my roommates. I wasn't intoxicated. I just wanted to be intimate. I looked him in the eyes and said, No, I want to be intimate with you. He quickly grabbed our coats and we left. It was a good night. 3 years later, I still have to be very direct with him, but he's a keeper. Story 9. About 10 years ago, a girl named Lisa and I were always flirty with each other. She was friends with a good friend of mine, had a place on Cape Cod. One weekend, my friend invited Lisa and me to their Cape house. There were a few other people there, so it wasn't awkward. One night, we were all on the beach and the others left, leaving just Lisa and me. From the beach, you can see Martha's Vineyard. She thought the lights we saw were a gaggle of boats. I told her it was the island. We made a bet. She thought I'd say the stakes were a kiss, but I said the loser owes the winner $10. I was right, but I never collected the $10. Lisa and I lost touch after that, and so did our mutual friend. Fast forward to February 2016, and Lisa reached out. We had our first date, still crushing hard on each other. The date went excellently. Now we're buying a house together, and I'm planning to take her back to that same beach in June to propose. I still want my $10, though. Story 10. I'm the girl who could not notice obvious hints in my relationship. A great example was when my fiancé and I first got together. He invited me over the day after spending time with me and my friends, where he joked about us being engaged and tried to get my friends to pick wedding gifts from a random catalog he found in my room. It was also very touchy-feely and even cuddled me. My best friend joined in, so maybe that's why I didn't see it. Anyway, the next day he invited me over to play Xbox. It still hasn't clicked that he's into me. I agreed and showed up, got introduced to his mom and his cat, and then he brought me upstairs to show me his record collection and played cute songs. Still not getting it. Then he got out his guitar and played an original love song he wrote. It was beautiful, and I said, "Wow, you're so cool." Still not flirting back. Finally, he went for it and said, "Hey, we should prank your best friend and say we've kissed." And I thought, "Oh my god, such a good prank, bro," and sent a text. This smooth guy then asked, "Hey, so are you a liar?" I spent a minute going, "Wait, are you serious? You want to kiss me? Why?" Before finally just going for it. Fast forward to now and we've been together for 5 years. Story 11. I was friends with a girl whose fiancé called off their wedding a couple of weeks before the date to pursue a crush from high school. Wanting to support her, I offered to hang out and listen if she needed to talk. A few weeks later, I found myself driving to visit her every weekend, staying in hotel rooms and spending as much time with her as possible. She was living in her mom's basement, and I wasn't allowed to stay overnight. One late night, while watching movies, she said she was going to change into her pajamas. She returned in tiny shorts and a tiny shirt, acting like it was no big deal. We continued watching the movie, and she got up a few times to do something I didn't see. After a while, she started rubbing her arms, shivering and saying she was cold. The first time I felt sympathy. The second time I was glad I ran a little hotter than most. The third time I offered to keep her warm. We've been married for 6 years now. She had given up on me making a move and planned an ambush, turning down the temperature until I had to keep her warm. Never underestimate how oblivious we can be. Story 12. What about a guy who doesn't pick up on his own hints? I met a guy through mutual friends while visiting their university. We hit it off, exchanged numbers, and talked often. He said he liked talking to me and thought I was great but wanted to be just friends, not looking for a relationship. I accepted this, expecting not to hear from him again, but he continued to text me regularly, never losing his humor or flirtatious attitude. 4 days later, he invited me to a music festival in his college town. I was confused, but agreed, thinking maybe he was serious about friendship. 3 days before my visit, he mentioned a great pizza place he wanted to show me. 2 days before, he talked about a cool milkshake place we had to visit. The day before, he asked if I wanted to go to a movie after their festival. I was under the impression that others weren't involved in these plans. I told my best friends, and one warned me that the guy sounded like he was playing me. Another friend suggested he might just be a bit clueless. We had a great time together, watched a movie at his apartment, and he made no moves. 2 months later, he asked me out, surprised to learn he had already taken me on a date. It's been 4 years and we're happily married, but he still wonders about that event. Story 13. For my birthday a few days ago, I went on a trip to Europe. On the first night, I met some compatriots and went into a restaurant to get food from my hometown. 3 women invited me to join them, so I moved my plate to their table. They insisted on buying me drinks all night. Eventually, the 2 older ones left, leaving me with the youngest. We talked for a while and she insisted on walking me home. I couldn't convince her otherwise, so we took a 3-minute taxi to my Airbnb. She got upset with me for not trying to convince her to come upstairs, even though she was talking about how honorable ladies don't do that. I made it clear that I wouldn't bring someone upstairs who needed convincing and that I had no intention of being intimate with her. She accused me of being prideful, saying I was lying about not wanting intimacy. She then came upstairs with me to use the bathroom and get into bed. She wanted to sleep there for the night due to a medical reason. We just slept, nothing else. The next morning I woke up early to continue my travels. She tried to get me to stay, but I didn't want to. She offered to shower and then be intimate, but I still didn't want to. She called me a coward and was hurt that I wouldn't be intimate with her. I reminded her that I had told her I had no such intention. It didn't matter. Remember, I never pursued her. They invited me to their table. We argued and I had to give many reasons why I wouldn't do it because my not wanting to wasn't enough. I tried to explain it wasn't about her, but she insisted it was. I dropped her off at her house and she was unsatisfied and upset with me. The point is, I shouldn't have to explain why I didn't want to be intimate with her. I had valid reasons. My love life is complicated, I had somewhere to be, I was tired, I didn't have protection, I didn't trust others to provide it. The Airbnb host was in the next room, she looked like my ex, but that didn't seem to matter. There's a misconception that men are always seeking intimacy. And if one doesn't want to be intimate, it's seen as a reflection on the other person. But that's not true, and it pressures people into doing things they don't want to. I don't care if someone calls me a coward, but I can see someone else giving in because of that pressure, feeling it's expected of them. Well, that's true. Anyways, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 14. I was the guy. It happened in high school and I was casually involved with 2 girls. Girl A and Girl B, who were also best friends. We would hang out and engage in some physical stuff, but not be intimate. There was no secret between them. and they were even comfortable enough to occasionally fool around with each other. It's important to note that I had not yet experienced being intimate at the time, so while I wasn't completely inexperienced, the idea of it was still new to me. Girl A's birthday was approaching, and Girl B and I were discussing it in class. She asked me what I planned to give her. I replied, "Not sure. I haven't really thought about it yet." Girl B suggested, "Well, Girl A's parents are away this weekend, so we thought we could have a fun get-together at her place. You should bring a gift." Not fully understanding the hint, I asked, "What do you think I should get her?" She replied, "How about a dress or a shirt? Something that can be easily taken off." I responded, puzzled, "Why would I get her something that can be taken off? That doesn't sound like a good birthday present." Looking back, I still cringe at my own cluelessness. In another experience, during my time working at a body art studio, one of my friends came in with two other friends to get a specific body piercing done. I arrived for my shift just after my friend had finished hers. A coworker informed me that my friend and her friends were there and had already given permission for me to observe the piercings, so I went to the room, knocked, and was told to enter. I walked in, greeted my mentor, my friend, and her friends. My friend then told me I just missed her piercing and said, "Oh, that's okay. I can still see your friends get theirs done, so I can still experience the process." She then lifted her shirt to show me, smiling and staring at me. I didn't think much of it and complimented my mentor and her work, asking my friend about her experience. Later, after her friends were pierced, we went to the front so I could provide them with the aftercare instructions. However, we were out of the pre-folded aftercare sheet, so I bent down to grab more from the box we kept them in. My friend then commented, "Your lower body's quite striking." I replied with a laugh, "That's funny. You're the first to make that joke." She responded, "I'm not joking. I'm expressing interest in you," looking directly into my eyes and smiling. I giggled and proceeded to explain the aftercare to the three of them. Every time I looked at my friend, she was still staring and smiling, which made me stammer through the instructions a few times. After finishing, I told them to have a great day and mentioned it was nice to see my friend. She walked away, smiling and giggling. I didn't realize she was serious until a coworker explained to me that she definitely wasn't joking when she said, "I'm expressing interest in you." Story 15. My best friend, a girl, moved back from college and started spending a lot of time with me for 2 years. She got a job near my house, stayed with me most nights of the week, wore comfortable or suggestive clothing, and often made inappropriate jokes. She also mentioned how good she was at certain intimate activities and how amazing she was in bed. I thought she was just my best friend, and there was nothing more to it. She insisted that we kiss for New Year's and under the holiday mistletoe 2 years in a row, saying there was no one else so we could do it as friends. She would give me back and foot massages, hang out while I played games with the guys or worked, and invite me to most of her outings and errands. Her friends became her friends, but she would still prioritize me and drop everything if I wanted to hang out. She even made me promise that we could get married if we were both unmarried by the time we turned 35. I never realized there might be more to her actions. It wasn't until a couple of years later when someone suggested that she might have been into me. Story 16. When I was a teenager, I took a multimedia class and routinely sat next to this girl. She was incredibly attractive, a bit quirky, and could hold her own in teasing conversations. I thought she was perfect. Throughout the year, we passed notes to each other, which eventually turned into entire notebooks of notes. She would talk about some guys she would see from time to time, and I did the same. One day I sort of confessed that I had feelings for her and wanted to kiss her in the middle of class. She simply wrote back, "So why don't you?" and nothing more. I said it was because she was seeing someone else and I didn't want to interfere. That was the first sign I missed. The second was a short while later. I hadn't yet lost my V card and I knew she was more experienced. When the topic came up, I mentioned how frustrating it was. She wrote back, "Skip the rest of the day with me." I replied, "No, I can't. My dad would find out and he'd be really upset." She transferred out of that class about a week later. It took me 3 whole years to realize, oh my gosh, she wanted to be intimate with me. No! I've regretted that missed opportunity ever since. The signs were so obvious, and I completely missed them. Story 17. There was this guy in high school who I had a huge crush on. I was totally infatuated with him. He was incredibly attractive, and a couple of years older than me. We had many mutual friends, so we often ended up at the same social gatherings. I flirted with him and gave him every sign I knew, but he never asked me out, so I thought maybe he wasn't interested. Years later, as adults in our early 20s, I met up with an old friend, and we ended up at my high school crush's house. He was having a small house party. The moment I saw him, it felt like going back in time. All those old feelings came rushing back. We started talking alone, and he confessed that he thought I was the most beautiful girl in our high school and that he was really into me, but assumed I was out of his league. I was surprised and told him how much I liked him back then, too. We spent the entire night talking and laughing about old times. sharing all the things we'd always wanted to say in high school but never had the courage to. We cuddled all night, and it felt like my high school self finally got what she wanted. It was surreal and dreamlike, like coming full circle. Although we didn't end up together after that night, I'm glad I had that one special night. Story 18. I attended an all-boys Catholic high school. We had 2 all-girls schools as our sister programs. It's safe to say that we had no idea what women were thinking or doing. At least, I had no clue. I was invited to the winter formal by Marie, a girl I didn't know well but who was very popular and attractive. My best friend at the time went with Jordan, a girl I had admired from afar since middle school. To me, she was stunningly beautiful. During the uncomfortably hot and nauseating teen limo ride through the hilly city, everyone was either hammered, sick, passed out, or making out. Except for me, my best friend, and our dates. My best friend had the idea to switch dates because Jordan wanted to make out with me and Marie wanted to hook up with Nick, my friend. For some reason, my sense of justice at the time told me this wasn't right and that we should stick with our original dates. But perhaps that night fate had other plans. Jordan turned to me and asked if her breath smelled okay. I confirmed it was minty and she offered me gum. Then she said, "You're silly. I want to kiss you. Are you an idiot? Kiss me." It was the most awkward and amazing kiss of my high school years, and I had no idea what was happening. Story 19. During college, there was a girl in one of my classes that I liked but never had the courage to approach. One day I ran into her in town while she was carrying her camera and we started a conversation about photography. The topic shifted to an upcoming test in the class we shared, and we agreed to meet up over the weekend to study. When I went to pick her up, she was wearing a short skirt and a low-cut top. We wandered around town, taking photos of various things, and it began to rain. She suggested we head to her place to study. Once there, she wasn't very focused on studying. She was lying on her stomach in front of me, giving me a clear view of her blessings, and even mentioned that she knew I looked at her in class. I told her to stop talking because I wanted to concentrate on studying. Then she tossed the books aside, went up to me and said, "Do you really think I wanted to study?" That's when I finally understood. I had been completely oblivious until she was physically close to me. A few months later, I attended a convention where young adults were selected by local organizations to represent them. There I met a girl from Minnesota. I'm from Georgia. Between delegation meetings, we young adults would hang out and network. The girl from Minnesota kept talking to me about Game of Thrones and asked about my delegation committee. I told her the room where we were meeting, not thinking much of it. One day I left my blazer in the committee room because it was a warm day. The convention lasted a week and the girl from Minnesota and I continued to talk and hang out. When the convention ended, we went our separate ways. 3 years later, I wore the same blazer to a talk by Dr. Cornel West. This blazer had been dry cleaned and worn to church and other events. I was listening to music and took my earbuds out, placing them in an inside pocket. I found a strange piece of paper that looked like a dry cleaner's receipt. When I unfolded it, I discovered the girl from Minnesota's full name, phone number, email, and Snapchat information. I put the slip back into the pocket and it's still there today. Story 20. I remember missing a very obvious hint. There was a girl in my psychology class who I chatted with all the time. To me, it seemed like the popular girl was just talking to the class clown because we happened to be seated next to each other and she knew my older sister. We mostly just shared silly jokes and had fun. I didn't think much of it at the time. But one day she called me after class and said she'd been talking to my sister, who had asked her to ask me out, thinking it would be good for me to go on a date. The girl wanted to know if I was free that weekend. There I was, facing one of the prettiest girls in school, who was asking me out on a date, with whom I got along well. All I could think was, how dare my sister try to interfere with my life? Does she honestly think I'm so clueless that I need help with dating? Sure, I've never dated before and I've never even kissed a girl, but I won't accept her pity. Hiding my frustration, I told the girl I was busy that weekend and didn't suggest another time. That was the end of it. We still chatted in psychology class, but not as much. We stopped talking altogether after the class ended. About a year later, I mentioned to my sister how annoyed I was that she had tried to set me up on a pity date. She had no idea what I was talking about. Story 21. I was at an ex's place. She was beautiful and had a great figure, and never thought something like this would happen. She was stressed, and we started talking. I like listening, so I let her speak. She wanted me to talk, so I shared my stress. But she cut the conversation short to offer me a massage. I declined, feeling self-conscious about my body and comfortable with being touched like that. She insisted, and I reluctantly agreed. She asked me to take my shirt off, but I firmly said no. She gave me a massage, which was great. It was my first one. Then she lay on her stomach and said, "Your turn." I enjoy giving massages, so I was happy to do it. She went off the bed, smiled, and asked me to turn away for a moment. I did, and she took her top off before lying back down. I was shocked and became very timid, worried about doing something wrong, like accidentally moving on to her inappropriately. After the massage, she just lay on her side, so I stood up, thinking I should leave. Luckily, she found me adorable and said, "No, silly, come here and cuddle with me." We had a wonderful day together. As much as I wanted something more to happen during the massage, and especially after she rolled on her side, I couldn't shake the fear of doing something wrong, so I waited. Story 22. Once when I was at my apartment alone, an attractive girl I knew came over and asked if I had a pair of jeans she could borrow. I had just put on my last clean pair, but she insisted we go to my room to check if I had one last pair left for her to borrow. She seemed a bit disappointed when I did find a fresh pair at the bottom of my drawer and then left the room for her to try them on. This girl often came over for various reasons. Watching a movie, having a spontaneous pancake party in the afternoon, usually when I was alone in the apartment. My roommate was a big partygoer and my girlfriend at the time lived 2 hours away, so I was often alone. I assumed she thought I was lonely and needed company. I knew there was a chance she thought I was lonely enough for a casual encounter, but I never took the hint. The "let me borrow some jeans" incident was the least subtle hint she ever gave, assuming she was actually hinting at something. Story 23. During college, I lived a 30-minute walk from campus where the parties were. A girl invited me to stay at her place a few times, saying it would be more convenient for me. Each time I slept on her sofa, and after about half an hour, she would leave her bed to join me, resting her head on my chest. I thought that was just a friendly gesture. Then one night she came over, turned her back to me, and I stayed close but not touching, with my arms at my sides, careful not to make contact. After a while, she turned to face me and we talked, leading to us cuddling. This time, we were much closer. I didn't try anything, thinking this was just something girls do with male friends. It didn't end there. In the morning, she woke up to go to a lecture but decided to come back to bed with me instead. This time, she pressed her back firmly against me and I waited for clearer signs. After half an hour, she got up, saying she had made a mistake by not attending the lecture, while I sat in bed, feeling foolish and realizing I'd missed an opportunity. For the record, a friend had told me a week earlier that she had only had one boyfriend and preferred to wait before being intimate with someone. I really didn't think she would consider me as a potential partner, but looking back, it seems so obvious. You waited for more signs? Dude, if she had a neon sign saying "kiss me," you'd probably be like, is that a new form of lighting technology? Story 24. 2 years ago in high school, a typical day started with waking up, eating cereal, and going to school. However, there was an unusual task that day. Our class was assigned to clean a newly built townhouse to earn money for a school trip to Germany. I wasn't keen on going because I'm lazy and saw no reason to participate, but I didn't want to be irresponsible and not show up, so I drove to the townhouse to help clean. After about 3 to 4 hours of cleaning, one of the girls approached me and said, "Jenny has no ride home. What should we do?" I replied, "Not sure. Can't you ask someone else for a ride?" The girl explained, "We've asked everyone, but no one can take her. Why don't you give her a ride to your place so she can wait there until her parents can pick her up later?" This seemed reasonable since I lived only 10 minutes away by car, and she lived about an hour from where we were. So we headed to my parents' house. Upon arrival, I went straight inside and Jenny followed. My parents were at the door, looking surprised. They didn't ask why I brought a girl home, but I explained the situation simply. No further words were exchanged. I then took Jenny up to my room and told her I'd be back after changing clothes downstairs. She asked, "Why don't you change here?" I said, "I need to get different clothes downstairs, so I'll change there." Downstairs, my mom was unusually helpful. She offered to get me anything I needed and even asked if I wanted her to go to the store right then. I casually said, "Sure, pizza would be great." She left to get us pizza, and I thought, wow, my mom is in a great mood today, getting me pizza and everything. Upstairs, I sat on the bed with Jenny. She suggested, "Why don't we watch a movie?" Being a movie enthusiast, I agreed enthusiastically. I found an action movie I'd seen many times on my computer, but she insisted on a romance movie instead. During the movie, she asked me many personal questions, like who I thought was the best looking in her class and who I wanted to be intimate with. I wanted to say it was her, but I didn't think it was appropriate. After 4 hours, her sister arrived to pick her up. I walked her downstairs and said goodbye. She remarked, "If you had just tried, you might have gotten something out of my visit." My mom happened to walk by just then. Jenny left, seeming upset. Why didn't I realize what was happening? I'm not sure, but I regret it more than I should. Story 25. I was in college and there was a girl I was talking to for a while. One time we were with friends in the student commons when she asked me, "Hey, will you come with me to my math teacher's office? I need to ask him something, but I don't want to go alone. He creeps me out." I thought it was because we were close and she trusted me. And since I'm a fairly large guy, she might want someone intimidating with her. I didn't think much of it. She led me to the art building on campus, which didn't have any math teacher offices. Being oblivious and distracted by her leggings, I didn't notice which building we were in. I didn't pick up on the building thing, so we ended up by some vending machines in a fairly isolated corner. He joked about her being lost, and she said she was. Her mom worked at the college, so she knew the place inside and out. There was no way she was lost. I was just that clueless. She mentioned there were no security cameras in the R building. I thought she was just making conversation. It wasn't until a year later that I realized she had led me to a secluded area of the school without security cameras. Not to talk to a teacher, but probably to be intimate or something. Story 26. I was staying at my uncle's house for a few days while we were preparing to move to a new location. His next-door neighbor's daughter came over and he joked about me not making a move on her. We spent some time watching TV together. She was subtly checking me out and making suggestive comments. She has a curvy figure and mentioned how she notices guys looking at her sometimes. She knew I had a car, and after my uncle and his girlfriend went to bed, she expressed interest in seeing my car. I hesitantly agreed and we went out to my Jeep, which was parked in a spot where we couldn't be seen unless someone was right outside the car door. Once inside the car, I turned on the radio and tried to show her the features of my car, as it was an awkward situation. It was cold outside, and she mentioned it in a way that suggested she wanted some warmth. She then leaned in, with her blessings visible, and asked with a sly smile, "What do you want to do now?" I responded, "Let's go back inside," and turned off the car, heading back indoors.
Women, what hints have you given your crush that they missed? We snuggled all night watching a movie together. Then, when he went to leave, I tried to kiss him goodbye, but he rejected it and drove away. Dejected, I went back to my room to sulk. He calls me 10 minutes later asking to meet me outside. I got outside and he shouts in disbelief, "Wait, were you trying to kiss me? Does that mean you like me?" Boy had legit driven away and called his friend because he was confused and thought I was giving mixed messages about liking him or not. Mixed messages where, dog? What do you mean? Story 2. My mother-in-law met my father-in-law when they both worked at a pizza place as teenagers. She was really into him, so she'd go in on her nights off to help slice tomatoes and onions and dropped hints to him for months, but he never picked up on any of it. One night she brought Hershey's Kisses and went to put them in the cooler and asked if he'd like his kisses cold. He said, "Actually, I prefer warm kisses." So she said, "Okay," and kissed him. That was when he realized she liked him. She blushes when she tells the story. She admits that was very unlike her, but her gut said to go for it. They've been married for 40 years. Story 3. Not me, but an old best friend and roommate. Girl that had a crush on him came over to our place to use the pool. After the pool, she used a shower and left the door slightly open. She mentioned that it's really hard to wash the middle of her back. I went into my bathroom, grabbed my longhand scrub brush, and literally tossed it in the bathroom and shut the door. He finished her shower, walked up to me and handed me the brush and left. I went into his room and asked him why she just handed me my scrub brush, and he told me she needed something to scrub her back. I told him that she meant he should go scrub her back. Dude seriously looked me right in the face and said, "But she had the brush." I sent her a text that said, "My boy is unfortunately touched in the head. You need to be direct with him." She texted back, "Good to know." He comes bursting into my room a few minutes later and hands me his phone and it says, "On my way over. Be ready." I let him have the place and went to see a movie. Story 4. Y'all suck at dropping hints. Even worse if y'all are already friends, like, how the heck am I gonna tell the difference of you being my friend and then you all of a sudden crushing on me? Since this is getting a lot of attention, I also want to point out, if us guys do try to read into it, we either get the, "It's not like that," or, "Well, now this friendship is awkward." It's a lose-lose no matter what. If we miss the signs, we're dense. If you try to pick up the signs, we're just reading into it too much and it's not like that at all, or even worse, we're pestering her. The fact we talk about this all the time kind of angers me. Not because I'm a knee, but because we pretend that we're progressive because we can have these talks. But it does nothing. How many times will we discuss this before things change? It's 2024, let's start being open, let's break the gender norms. We pretend that we're more progressive than the last generations, but we just talk about it without any change. Actually more infuriating. Story 5. I had a huge crush on this girl, and it turned out, to everyone else but me, she had an even bigger one to me. She told everybody else, but when I pursued her, gave her the red carpet treatment, she did the exact opposite. She was extremely mean to me, extremely dismissive, couldn't even approach her, etc. Of course, I did what I was supposed to do. Found another girl who was not only great, but very receptive to me. Had a great relationship. Didn't last forever, but I think it was great, regardless. Immediately after I got together with the ex, the mean girl was telling her friends how crushed she was and was actively, knowing that I was with my ex, trying to get with me even 2 to 3 years later. A few times she was trying to flirt with me in front of my girl. What the heck? If you like someone, just be an adult about it and be more transparent. Play acting is from elementary school. Story 6. To all the ladies thinking we're dense, no, it's not that. I've realized that a friendship with a woman is very precious, for me at least, because it's a nice feeling overall that we can both trust each other, even though I sometimes feel like I'll give a wrong signal as just another guy friend who couldn't just help develop feelings and wanted to be more. But luckily they don't think that and are just cool and chill and open. That's just something special. I think women really appreciate having a guy friend as well who they can trust just as much as guys appreciate the opposite. And we really don't want to mess that up by getting the wrong idea. Well, some men, but some men are actually just dense. Story 7. We would sleep in the same bed together, like literally sleeping whenever we'd stay over at each other's place as opposed to someone sleeping on the couch. I would make active efforts to cuddle with him whenever possible. I'm known for being a very reserved and definitely not a touchy-feely person, and it was always the exception. We literally stargaze together. I thought it couldn't be more obvious. Apparently, he had no idea I was into him, and refused to believe his friends when they'd tell him that I was super into him and he should ask me out. Don't worry, we've been together for a few years now. Story 8. Just a couple little things I remember that make me laugh. First time we met up, we stayed until close and we were really feeling some sparks. He walked me to my car and it was still early, so I waited to see if he wanted to go somewhere else, but he got very shy and said, "Well, drive safe," and scurried back to his car. Our first sleepover at his place, and we had some wine. We talked about trading messages, so I sneakily did something with my top. I was so nervous and kept going around it. I let out a giggle, thinking to myself, it's go time. Bat signal on. Fly, Batman, fly. He kept dutifully rubbing my back, and I kept waiting for his hands to wander, but then he meekly said, "Hey, my hands kinda hurt. Is it okay if we take a break?" And then I awkwardly tried to get my stuff back on, and we sat up so we could finish watching that one movie with Ali Wong while I gave him his massage. So did something happen eventually, or? Story 9. This may get downvoted because I'm a guy responding to this, but if Mallory were here, I'm sure she'd reference me. I was going through a bad breakup, and after 2 weeks of sulking, my friends and coworkers got me out to a bar. At the bar, Mallory went out of her way to show me photos of her at a recent beach vacation. Well, that one was a little spicier than I meant. Whoops. I had no idea what was happening. Next day, at like 11:30 a.m., I got a call from her. She's never called me before. "Hey, I just got done working out and I don't want to go all the way home to shower before work. Can I shower at your place? I'll bring you breakfast." I still didn't get it. It literally wasn't until she was standing in front of me, shower running, asking for a towel, that I understood what was happening. I was such a freaking idiot. It's made me question, and rightfully so, most interactions I have with women. Story 10. I was introduced to this cutie and we made plans to go on a hike together. The hike turned into us going for dinner, then to a beach party to watching falling stars. Shooting stars, a night. Then we went back to his sailboat that he lived on. We had drinks, and he said I could stay the night, and he made up the couch area for me. It was an unreal 3-in-1 date, I thought. I figured a little making out was in order. He said goodnight. I said, "Hey, so what is it like back there in the V-berth?" V-berth is the bed area. It literally started to show me the cupboards. I crawled in, and we held hands and snuggled. P.S. 5 years later, this guy brought me back to the same hike and proposed. Oh, congratulations. Story 11. I was at this house party with a bunch of people from work. You know, the usual scene. Drinks, music, people mingling and chatting. Anyway, I noticed this guy from accounting, let's call him Mark, hanging out in the kitchen. We chatted a few times at work, but nothing serious. So I decided to go over and talk to him. We started making small talk, and I'm trying to drop some hints that I'm interested. The music is loud, and everyone's shouting to be heard. At one point, I mention how hot it is and ask if he feels warm too. Before he can answer, I get this wild idea and think, why not? So I showed it to him, thinking it's a clear sign I'm flirting. But Mark just stands there, stunned. He laughs and awkwardly says, "Yeah, it is pretty warm in here." I couldn't believe it. Did he seriously think I did that because of the temperature? I mean, come on. I laugh it off and say something about needing more ice for my drink, trying to play it cool. We continue talking for a bit, but he seems totally clueless. Later, one of his friends pulls him aside, and I see them talking. The friend looks over at me, then back at Mark, and I can tell he's explaining what just happened. Mark's face changes from confusion to shock, and I realize he genuinely didn't get it. I guess sometimes guys can be really dense when it comes to picking up on signals. I thought I was being so obvious, but he totally missed it. Classic Mark. Story 12. I liked this girl and felt she liked me too. We were constantly at each other's houses or doing stuff outside of school together. She didn't drive, so I was constantly either picking her up to go do things. I ended up asking her to prom, and she said yes. We went to prom and did the after-prom things together, and when I was dropping her off, I was so nervous and went in for a kiss, but instantly felt sick to my stomach. All we did up to this point was hold hands. Shortly after prom, school ended. I graduated, she was a junior, then all of a sudden she went radio silent. I finally just went over to her house after a couple of weeks since I was over there all the time prior, and she told me then and there she had gotten a boyfriend because all we ever did was hold hands and she thought I wasn't interested. I haven't talked to her since. It's been 19 years, but I will never forget that feeling of betrayal. Feeling of betrayal? You lose 100% of the shots you don't take, man. What do you mean? Story 13. I asked a guy out on a date. I was newly single and hadn't been single in years. He had no idea it was a date. I suggested we go to a really good Mexican restaurant for dinner, and we sat outside and ate. We then didn't want to end it there, so we decided to get ice cream. We also made plans for our next meetup. We went to DQ and got blizzards and then sat outside in a large hill watching over the traffic on the highway. The sun was setting and it was windy. It was getting super cold, so I pulled out blankets from my car and basically mama-owled him, hugged him and tied and nestled him under my arm. He still had no idea it was a date. In fact, he thought it was just super friendly. I finally had to tell him, after many more missed hints, that I was interested in him romantically. Story 14. A long time ago, my partner was hit on by a lovely young lady. She had a savory platter and came up to the group of people we were with and asked him if he would like to taste her cherry. He looks down at the platter and replies, but they were actually cherry tomatoes with a confused look in his face. It was hilarious, especially after she asked him the second time if he was sure he wouldn't like to taste her cherry, and he just replied he was not hungry, but thank you, and that they were tomatoes. I had to explain to him what she meant after I stopped laughing so much, and he couldn't believe he didn't pick up any of what she was putting down. Story 15. Not a woman, but I did have a lady drop hints that I never picked up on. Went to a few restaurants together, just us. It wasn't romantic or anything. I paid the first time, and she said she'd pay for the second one. And number one, clearly wanted to do it again, right? My friends and hers met up after a bowling alley trip. She was intoxicated and told everyone to not let me see her. Literally every guy saw how intoxicated she was, but she wouldn't want to see me. And number two, for obvious reasons, I post about late night trips to get food, and she would respond in her own separate post in social media how she wanted food that came from the place I was at. And number three, she wanted me to get her food as an excuse to go see her. And the last time I saw her, she bumped into me and insisted we get lunch. She kept saying how she owed me for the last one, even though I kept telling her it was okay. We went to get food, but I left because I didn't want to be late for class. She was bummed. And number four, duh, and she was the one initiating. This was the last time I saw her. There were a lot of other hints, such as leaning against me or resting her head on my shoulders or grabbing onto me, etc. A lot has happened since then, and we just never did anything together again after that. All my male and female friends kept telling me she was into me. I just didn't pick up on it, and it was clear enough that I deemed it to make a move. I just didn't want to be a creep or make it weird to be friends if I got the wrong interpretation. I really liked her. As years went by, I realized how good of a person she was and how unlucky and stupid I was for not just coming out and saying it. I dropped off the face of the earth to most people, including her, by deleting all social media and phone numbers. I never really followed what happened to her afterwards. I did get curious some years back and found her social media. It was with some guy and seemed happy, which I'm very glad for. My life would have been very different if I were a little braver. I'm married now and doing very well in life, so I have no complaints. Story 16. Not a woman, but a guy friend missed the hint the size of a truck. We were out and he got chatty with an acquaintance and started dancing with her all night. We were club hopping, and at the end of the night, he wanted to go to the next bar, and she gave the hint of, "Nah, I want to go home and have a shower. Please, will you join me?" He said, "Nah, I'm going to shower in the morning," and just took off. Later at our place, he told me how strange of a request it was to ask for a shower. I went on the floor laughing, and it soon dawned on him why. He was banging his head on the wall all night over how stupid he was. Man, I would too. Story 17. Drove two girlfriends, 2 words, home after a party. They said I can crash on the couch and that the both of them will be upstairs in her bed. I'm like, okay, cool. But I'm sober and can make it home with no problem. They insist they feel safer if I stay. So I stayed. About an hour later, the blonde comes downstairs in something a bit more casual and gets a glass of water and asks if I'm still up. I mentioned, isn't it uncomfortable to sleep in that? She shrugs and goes back upstairs. 15 minutes later, the brunette comes down and says the window is stuck open and it's cold. So I went upstairs and shut the window, without effort, said goodnight and went back downstairs to sleep. Please don't hurt me more than I've already hurt myself. I just can't believe it, and the story has haunted me for years. Yeah, well, what if the window was stuck open and it's cold? Story 18. Male here. I'm the most oblivious guy ever. Had a decent amount of female friends in my life and found that they're a little flirty or bantery, which is fine and fun, etc., but was always platonic. Anyway, I met this girl in a local bar, and she is hot. Like a 10 out of 10, so easy to talk to. Funny as heck and really clever. I don't consider myself an attractive guy. If you were to put me into a clique at school, I'd be one of the in-betweeners. Only way I got chatting to this girl so easily is because I'm used to being around girls due to my friend group being like 50% female. Anyhow, we chat most of the night and go our separate ways. She finds me on Facebook and we chat for days. A month or so later, I'm out with a friend and she's there with hers. Smallish town, so the group sort of know each other. The girl walks right up to me, sits next to me, and we start chatting again. Eventually, she goes to hold my hand and it finally clicks. Turns out she was interested the whole time. I was just not getting those hints, so she had to be much less subtle. She's normally pretty introverted, so later told me it was usually unlike her to be so forward. 10 years later, we're happily married and have an amazing life together. Mental. Well, congratulations again. Story 19. None. No hints. Literally nobody has ever hinted they might like me. I can count on one hand the women who have ever had the slightest romantic feeling for me. And don't give me that garbage, oh, then you totally missed a hint somewhere. In high school, I was perhaps the least popular kid there. In college, I was told by no fewer than 5 women that I was not the dating type. I even had one girl who I just asked on a date to call me back and clarify, oh, this is just a friendly meeting, right? When I asked my wife to marry me, I'm still pretty certain she just settled for me because I was stable and wanted a family. So is there any booze in this pity party, or? Story 20. I was a freshman in college at the time. Class had just let out, so I was shuffling out of the classroom with the rest of my peers. This really tall, attractive guy in front of me turns around, hands me a folded piece of paper and says, do whatever you want with this, and walks out of the room. My oblivious self thought he just indirectly asked me to throw away his trash for him. So that's what I did. A little confused, I tossed it in the trash on my way out of the classroom. Made it 10 steps down the hall before I realized he may have just handed me his number. Went back into the classroom, pulled a piece of paper out of the trash, and it was, in fact, his number. Later, after I texted him and we'd hung out a couple times, we were sitting in my car after a movie, and he looks behind him and said, have you ever sat in your backseat before? It looks pretty comfortable. Then looks at me intently. I look this man in the eyes and respond, no, usually when I'm in my car, I'm the one driving it. We did, after a more direct second attempt on his part, end up in the backseat of my car. I was diagnosed with ASD a few years later. Story 21. I never touch anyone platonically other than the pats in the back and maybe grabbing someone's hand when I'm dizzy. And we have a friend who literally sits on single dudes' lap platonically. She has a boyfriend of years that she's super committed to. But I kept snuggling my crush, holding his hands while not dizzy. I let him know I'm not dizzy. Shyly asked him for a hug, asked him if there was a possibility that I can date him. I don't blame him for missing this. There was a joking air around. Took him to my apartment, insisted that he slept in the bed with me. Took him to a movie and held hands with him throughout, kept heavily flirting with him and asked him out. We've been together for a year now. He said he kept missing the hints due to the behavior of our friend who does all of the above with our guy friends platonically. Still a bit bitter that she ruined my delicate courting like that, albeit unintentionally. She also made me very jealous a lot of times she got close to my boyfriend. I now understand the dilemma of dudes, so ladies, if you're interested, please just straight away ask the dude out. Story 22. Not a girl, but I'll take any chance to share the story of my monumental screw-up. We're all nerdy high school age, all part of the same clique of about 14 other nerdy people. We would have big LAN parties where we would all bring our Xboxes over to one of the girls named Sarah's house, and we would play Halo and Halo 2 for hours together. We would often end up spending the night, having a bonfire, that kind of thing. Anyway, we would all sleep in the basement of this house. Sleeping bags and air mattresses kind of thing. One time I feel someone onto the air mattress beside me and I roll over and it's Sarah. She told me she liked me and wanted to know if I wanted to do it. My response? Lol, Sarah, don't make fun of me like that. I then promptly rolled back over and went back to bed. It wasn't until like a week later when she told me she liked me again that it finally clicked that maybe she was hitting on me. Well, yeah, genius. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 23. May I answer as the idiot who missed the hint? A girl who I thought was sexy but I had been friends with for so long. I just didn't see her like that anymore, had indeed begun to think of me that way. She told me one night she wanted to go park at the local lovers lane and talk. No biggie. We were the only car there. We were talking away about everything, like normal, and she looked toward the back of my SUV and asked me if those seats were folded down. I said yes. She said, almost like a bed. I agreed. Yeah, almost like a bed. Then she laughed and said, somebody could probably have intimacy back there. I looked back and said, yeah, probably could, and returned to talking about the weather or whatever I'd been saying. It didn't dawn on me until about 3 days later. How stupid could I possibly be? Pretty stupid, apparently. No, we never fooled around. I didn't have the nerve to try to hint anything to her, and I think she thought I got her hint and gently shot it down. So I didn't bother to hint again. And I didn't do anything remotely like that. Ladies, I have a plea for you. Please just say, I have an idea. Let's fool around. Or something, so it's crystal clear. Some guys don't get hints well. Please pity us and just say what you want. Don't hint. Story 24. Not a woman, but being a man, it's a big mix of not being a creep, fear of losing a friendship, and being blind as heck. I used to work with my girlfriend and would drive her home at night because she didn't have a car. Well, my car broke down for a time, so I would walk her home. Her house was like a 30-minute walk from work, so it wasn't something short. But in the end, she would sit outside with me until my ride came. I didn't always tell my ride I was ready so I could spend time. It would be 30 minutes to an hour sitting in the chilly breeze, talking away. Even after a few weeks, we spent time hanging out after work, but I didn't want to overthink it and ruin a budding friendship. Looking back on it, oh my God, was I so dumb. The sheer amount of time we spent together each night and doing things not typical friends do. Driving for literal hours in the pitch black road, listening to music and laughing about the silliest things, and even a night of laying under the lit canopy, laying sideways in a hammock in the negative cold staring at the stars. Until the sun rises. None of it was concrete or even laid the idea in my head. Only until we were on another one of those late nights exploring a new city, I splayed out my hand in a ha-ha what gesture, and she placed hers in mine, did the idea hit me. It was so awkward, but it felt right. We just kept quiet for so long after that until I asked if it was all right, and all she could say was yeah, it's cool, while having a beet red face and the biggest smile I've ever seen. I thought she was the prettiest girl in the world, and I genuinely enjoyed the conversations we had. But I didn't think she felt the same until then. I learned it wasn't just a crush a few nights after when I accidentally took a wrong turn up the mountains to Estes. Hey, before you judge, I had the purest intentions. But we ended up in the town parking lot, and I asked if she wanted to cuddle in the back, both of us taking it very different ways. With how I think of myself, and at the time she was ending it with her crappy ex who she stopped caring for ages before, the last thing I wanted to assume was she liked me like that. It was definitely a mix of don't be creepy and hard denial. Apart from how often or much she hung out with me, there were seriously no hints. That's not me being blind of not seeing them. Rather, she was too scared to do anything because of where we were regarding work and worried I would walk away. In the end, an accidental mishap is what hastened the process. Story 25. A man here. When my now girlfriend and I were just friends, part of the same friend group, all of us used to meet quite often, and every time we did, she used to ask me if I want to see her secretly after they are all gone, and do I want to sneak out of the place with her to go somewhere. We would often sneak out and have an ice cream or something. My dense self did not get a hint, so one day, while having ice cream after sneaking behind her friends' backs, she came really close to my face and said, "Sneaking around with you is so much fun. I wonder what more could we do to have more thrill between us?" To which I must have replied with a ha-ha or something. It got to a point where we would talk about kissing. Not each other, just in general. In the presence of her friends, and she would try to hold my shirt every time we walked. Everyone knew but me. And when she told me this recently, I was like, "What? I thought you were being a close friend." Been with her for 2 years and counting. Happy and blessed. Story 26. Way back when, I was talking to a classmate of mine, or like showing interest in each other. While everyone treated us like a couple and joked just to start dating and such, I gathered my courage and confessed, but got rejected. More like friend-zoned into oblivion. I was so sure she liked me back. Second-guessed almost every interaction and thought maybe I didn't say it right while confessing. I was in total agony for almost 2.5 days when she came and told me she likes me too. I had a very forgetful dating experience after that. Even now, I can only remember this experience, not the actual dating part. Story 27. I'm a guy, but I have a hilarious story to tell about missing out on hints. So last year, I had a birthday party and invited over my crush, who also worked with me. Anyways, I didn't think she would come until she sent me a text asking for the address. She brought a friend with her, but she got along with everyone else I invited, so couldn't complain. Nothing much happened until she, my crush, randomly started getting touchy with me. Out of nowhere, she started feeling my hair and almost massaging my head while talking to some of my friends, but still something told me it's platonic. Oh, well, I'm an idiot because we sat down and she somehow managed to put her hand on my freaking lap. Like, come on, past me, that's a huge signal there. I didn't know what to do, so I just put my hand over hers and held on to it. She didn't remove her hand, so I thought this was okay. Nothing much progressed until she was finally ready to head out. I figured now's my chance to get a kiss from her or something. Funny thing is, I walked her out to her car, said goodbye to her friend first, and as soon as her friend got into her car, she jumped me. I was literally carrying her and we just stared at each other frozen. Neither one of us leaned in for the kiss. Part of me punches the air because I missed out on something huge with my crush, which rarely ever happens. But on the other hand, we were both pretty intoxicated, so I don't know. Story 28. As a guy, dropping hints or subtle nudges or anything like that won't work real well with us. That's for a few reasons. One, we're simple creatures, and oblivious and man may as well be synonyms. But two, if we do pick up on your hints but don't respond to them, there's a good chance we're playing it safe. Last thing we want is to be wrong and be embarrassed or worse. In some unfortunate situations, accused of mistreatment. I know a friend of mine got accused of workplace mistreatment because he thought he picked up on hints from his coworker who gave him glances all the time, so he asked her out. Got reprimanded by HR the next day. Best way to let us know is to be upfront with us. That's kind of the whole secret to it. Be blunt. Be blunt because we men cannot be blunt these days anymore. Story 29. I had a girl at the office who was very friendly. Did not think much of it. We're chatting, just passing time. Then realized the next day she has full makeup on and is happy to see me. And noticed her conversation was very flirty. Was flattered, but stopped right away. I'm married and don't need any of that. She knew I have a wife and several children. Had previously shown her family pictures. Didn't seem to matter. I'm a friendly guy, so did not think anything about it at the time. Asked another female coworker, and she said it was obvious. It was also kind of bad as I'm in my 40s and she was 20-something. She ended up getting paid off shortly after. Nothing came of it. Sometimes it may be better to just not know about it. Story 30. It was kind of sweet on this older guy at work. Then 27 female, 41 male. At the time we were hired, we were both in bad marriages. In fact, I accepted a position with the company because I separated from my now ex-husband and was about to file for a divorce. In need of sage advice and an ear to bend, I would keep this guy up to date on the latest legal drama and ask his advice on other things. About a year and a half later, he pulled me aside. His wife moved out. He wanted my advice on what he should expect in the first couple of months of separation. A very private guy. He asked to discuss this after work over beer and chicken wings. I agreed. My turn to return the favor. Seeing him outside the office, I realized just how gorgeous he was. Like Gucci model gorgeous. I went from kind of liking him to I really want to date him. So as he drove me back to my car, nervous as heck, this is a hot guy I work with. No pressure there. I got up the nerve to ask him on a legit date. When he was ready, he looked at me like I just farted in his car and burst out laughing. In fact, he laughed so hard tears ran over his cheeks, he could barely catch his breath. Eventually he said, "What a wicked sense of humor you have. Kicking an old guy when he's down on his luck. An old fart like me, going a date with a hot young girl like you." Oh, God, you're serious. Mortified, I wanted nothing more than to crawl under the seat. Well, I was. As I was about to jump out the car and never speak to him again, he grabbed my elbow. Oh, what the heck? What's the worst that's going to happen? I'll be your flavor of the week? Sure, we'll give it a go. That was 17 years ago. We just celebrated our 6th wedding anniversary 2 weeks ago. Story 31. Kind of off topic, but I felt I should share this. Me and this girl had been hanging out for a couple of weeks and had gone back to my house for the drive-in movies after a really good evening. Once we were about to head our separate ways, I went in for a kiss, but she assumed it was a hug and closed the distance. I jokingly mentioned that I was going in for a kiss, and following some apologies and awkward jokes, she left. I went to my room to sulk on a failed attempt, and not 30 seconds later, she called me and told me to go outside. When I got outside, she walked up to me, told me to give her my hand, and she placed it over her heart and told me how nervous she was. I could literally feel her heart racing. So I had her place her hand over my heart so she knew I was just as nervous, and we kissed. Oh man, that must have felt great. Story 32. We were in a youth camp and he knew how to play pool. I didn't know how to play pool, so I asked him to teach me, so I had him for 5 days at that camp, teaching me how to hold the cue stick and how to hit the balls. One night, the camp leader sent us to sleep early, but many of the young campers, taking advantage of the fact that the leaders were asleep, threw a party. My crush went to play pool and I went down in my pajamas, t-shirt and shorts to play with him. I already understood how to play, but I started to use the cue stick wrong so that he could help me hold it better from behind. I was there for an hour until the leaders discovered everything and sent us to sleep. I always was the most obvious person on the planet. I didn't know how to hide how much I liked him, but 2 years later, in 2018, I tell him that I was in love with him and he looked surprised. He told me that he didn't know that I liked him. When I told my friends, they didn't know whether to make fun of him or hit him. Story 33. Not a woman, but a story I tell about a girl that dropped hints at me. Our family used to have a small boat. Nothing fancy, but it was nice to go out on the lake with it and have fun with friends fishing, hanging out and just be goofy teenagers. One day, I was going out to cruise around on the lake and a good female friend of mine asked if she could tag along. I said sure, and I picked her up in the boat at her dock at her house. She put on this really eye-catching bikini that for some reason I was blind to. We tooled around the lake for about an hour, making waves and splashing the water, stopped in the middle of the lake and started chatting. She was flirting with me, and also I was blind to. She would often lean over to look in the water or something, which I was blind to. She even slipped a few times in front of me, which I was blind to. After a little while, I took her back to her house, dropped her at her dock, and she said to me, "My mom and dad aren't home. I think I'll go soak in the hot tub for a while. Did you want to come up too?" Which I replied, "I think I need to go get gas for the boat. Maybe some other time." She later called me and said point blank, "I was trying to get with you all day and you did nothing. Even invited you to join me in the hot tub and you did not see it." I think when she said that, a hammer hit me in the head to what I missed on. Story 34. Guy here. There was a girl I liked but always thought was way, way, way out of my league. We were out one night with friends and she said, "Let's get out of here and head back to our friend's house." As we were walking there, we were having so much fun. We were both big Beatles fans and she told me her favorite song is "I've Just Seen a Face." We were literally singing it, basically frolicking together while slightly intoxicated. We were leaning on each other, holding hands, swinging our arms and dancing together. We got back to our friend's place and she went straight to the bedroom while I sat like a clown in the living room, made a drink, drank it, and got up to leave. Then dawned on me and I ran back just as everyone arrived in a taxi. Our friends all piled into the room and we had a big, fun, late-night party. But that was mine or our shot. We went our separate ways after that. There were other stories too. Anyway, the moral of the story is, us guys have no clue, and I apologize for that. Story 35. I'm not a woman, but boy did I mess up yesterday. Pretty sure this girl doesn't have a crush on me, but I digress. She definitely wanted to hang out with me though. I was at the water park yesterday and I saw one of my friends who was a girl and I haven't seen her in a long time, but she went over and said hi and all that. I was talking to her and she laughed and she ended up coming back and she passed me twice in the pool, obviously very close to me, but for whatever reason I ignored it. She then splashed me with water and I splashed her back in a playful way. She then gave me a slice of pizza. Later, when I was leaving, she held up her hand for a high five and she ended up holding my hand for like a split second and I just did not think about it at all. I later texted her, thanking her for the piece of pizza, and she told me to shush, and I was confused, so I asked why. Turns out the whole time she wanted me to hang out with her, and I'm an idiot, so I missed every single hint. I actually almost cried. Story 36. So many guys saying, "Please girls, just tell us." My dudes, it's exactly as for us. They also can be scared that we're not into them. If we don't take hints because we don't want to be creeps, it also means we act really cold as a very platonic friend. She can clearly understand this as I'm not into you, so she drops hints now and then to see if there's a possibility. Who here as a guy would openly say to a woman, "Hey, you're my crush, now what?" No one. Anyway, I totally get you, girls. It's scary to say to someone we crush on him or her, but be a little bit more obvious is probably better to say than just say it. Cheers. Story 37. It was during my last year of high school, and this guy was my first real crush. I made a deal with him. Every Tuesday after school, he would keep me company before my ballet class that started at 8 p.m., and in return, he would get a small massage every time. So I got to spend around an hour and a half with him every week doing either sports like volleyball, badminton, or chatting on the high school grass with no one around. It always ended with my head massaging his back for a bit in empty school hallways, but nothing ever happened. Still, he was gently teasing me and laughing with me like no other girl during the day, so I like to think that he liked me too, but clearly wasn't true. And the high schooler in me was way too shy and inexperienced to try anything. I learned the next year from a friend that he had a huge crush on me too, but wasn't sure I liked him back. At that time, I was not really talkative about who I liked to my friends, so she had no clue either. Seems like the weekly massages, blushing to everything he did and looking for private times with him was not clear enough. A few years later, we saw each other again. It felt just like before with a little flirting and teasing, but we just both had a huge breakup from our respective girlfriend and boyfriend during the last month. I let him take me back to my dormitory. We discussed it again for a whole hour in front of my place, but nothing more happened and we never met again. Dog, why? Story 38. Man here. When I was 19, my father was getting remarried and I went to get a suit measured out for myself with a close family friend, who I'd known for most of my life. We basically grew up across the street from each other and her family was going to the wedding, so I figured some extra company and a second opinion in the suit couldn't hurt. I got there, tried my tux on, and I promptly asked her how it looked. Without thinking, she casually says, "I want to leave that suit at the foot of my bed until tomorrow." My idiot self looked at her quizzically and said, "Please don't. That would wrinkle the suit." My clueless self finally caught on and realized what she had meant a few days later during the wedding after party. They had been together for 8 years now. Story 39. I have an inverse situation, where it was still me, the guy, being obtuse. I told the woman I was head over heels for her. We were great friends and she didn't want to ruin it. My heart was broken, but I tried to accept it and we remained close, and eventually became best friends.
Later, while out shopping, she was looking at something in the freezer section of the grocery store, and I just leaned forward and kind of goofily put my head on their shoulder. She turned and kind of looked at me. Weeks later, she told me she'd been really thinking about everything. She had seen me with another woman and gotten extremely jealous. She realized she loved me. She thought that was a moment. I'd practically forgotten about it, till I got a Valentine's Day card from her telling me we were married 2 days shy of 24 years. Absolute love of my life. And I was clueless about the moment that helped her realize it.
What is the most awkward thing you've done in a misguided attempt at flirting? Oh man, this one burns to relive. About 1.5 years ago, I flew into Montana and drove straight to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, with a good buddy of mine. We started drinking pretty heavily at the rodeo and decided to eventually saddle up at the $1 Million Cowboy Bar. When we walked in, there was space at the back bar, so we took our positions. Within minutes, we were surrounded by 20 girls from a bachelorette party. Money. Pause for relevant context. I had been up for about 20 hours off of 3 hours of sleep. I don't have cash, and this is an all-cash bar. My buddy, now sitting on my left, is very smooth with girls. Now I was in the middle of a dry spell. One of the girls comes up and sits down on my right, chatting me up. She's gorgeous, and I'm pumped. After a few minutes, my buddy starts rubbing my leg. I'm a little confused, but figured he was giving me a hint, and started mirroring his behavior by rubbing the girl's leg. After a few more minutes, he starts rubbing more vigorously. I'm thinking to myself, this actually works? But nevertheless starts rubbing her leg more vigorously. The conversation quickly deteriorates and she runs off in a hurry to join her friends on the dance floor. I turn to my buddy and he says, "Take the 20. What 20? The $20 I'm rubbing on your leg so you can buy her a drink." She came back 5 minutes later wearing a wedding ring. I'm positive she wasn't married, just applying some repellent. No story that contains the phrase drinking pretty heavily at the rodeo will end well. Story 2. In high school, when I was 14 or 15, I rode the bus with a girl who had blossomed early. She was from a different group from me and we did some occasional flirting, but chances for actual interaction were rare. While we were standing around waiting for the buses to arrive one day, I noticed that she was wearing jeans shorts cut very short on top of her very long legs. For some reason, I thought it would be hilarious to light the fringe of her jeans short on fire with my lighter. Keep in mind, I was guided only by hormones. I thought it would be like a sock fire or something, like whoosh, then out. So when her back was turned, I lit the lighter right under her back. And of course, immediately, the frayed con of the shorts went right up and showed no indication of going right out. Immediately, I recognized that I had made a major error, and I commenced slapping at her in an attempt to get it out. It did go out, but of course, I had run up behind her and apparently begun roughly grabbing at her back from her perspective, attempting to smooth it over with, "I was trying to put out the fire that had set upon you." Didn't go over any better, and needless to say, I could have gone to jail. She just decided to avoid me, and rightly so. From then on out, who needs a matchmaker when you've got a match? Talk about sparking interest. Story 3. This happened last weekend. It was not one of my prouder moments in life. I started the night doing a power hour, 1 drink every 60 seconds. Except for about 3 drinks in, I decided to make it a super power hour, which entailed 1 shot of bourbon every 15 minutes in addition to the beer. Normally I could handle this much, but we decided to extend the super power hour to a super power hour and a half. I then played drink pong. Game over. Blackout central. Anyways, this is the text I sent my friend to announce I was coming to his house to cause chaos. "Yo, clear the women. Me, Nick, and whatever is rolling through." What happened next was fantastic. I jumped into my friend's hot tub, which contained a number of attractive females who were on my friend's dance team, so they were all attractive and fit dancers. A few highlights from the night. Dived underwater and tried to take one of their clothes off. Did not succeed. Tried to dance with 2 women in the hot tub, splashing water everywhere. I did actually succeed in this respect and managed to ruin my phone in the process, which I had neatly put next to the hot tub on the ground. Asked 3 hot girls if they wanted to see my Johnson. Before they could answer, I whipped it while shouting, "Woo!" I purportedly did this multiple times to many different groups of women. I went up to a friend's room to find him talking to a girl I had previously been with. I initiated conversation and then mid-sentence made eye contact with a girl and said, "Hey, do you want to get doubled right now?" This did not get me far, but at least my friend ended up hooking up with her. Talked to a girl my other friend was hooking up with, and this was the entirety of the conversation. Me: "Are you and X hooking up?" Her: "No." Me: "Do you want to hook up with me?" Her: "No." I was a schmuck that night. My bad. I woke up with no idea that any of this had happened. I didn't hear about any of it until late the next day on account of having lost my phone to the hot tub waves I'd created. Not sure if these attempts were misguided, but they sure were hilarious or awkward. Story 4. 3 summers ago, I was sitting in an airport terminal, ready to fly to Arizona to visit some relatives. As I sat reading someone else's newspaper and drinking overpriced coffee, I looked up and saw a beautiful girl, about my age, sit down across from me. Something about her made me want to talk to her. I smiled at her. She was reading. She didn't see me. I decided to try a distraction. I coughed and she glanced up. Sorry. Hi, excuse me, I mumbled. Hi, what's that you're reading? She smiled and went back to her book. Oh well, I guess she's not interested, I thought to myself. Eventually the call to board was made, and I quickly grabbed my bag and got on the plane. I settled into my seat, disappointed in having missed my chance at having a nice conversation to pass the time, settling instead for the daily Sudoku puzzle. Much to my surprise, the girl from before approached my row and sat down next to me. Fate, it seems, has given me a second chance. Hello again, I tried. Once again, she smiled at me and returned to her book. At least this time, she seemed a little bit interested in paying attention to me. Desperately, I tried to string together some kind of conversation starter as the plane took off. So, what brings you to Arizona? Again with a smile, but still nothing. I was beginning to wonder if she was mute. All throughout the plane ride, I'd attempt to start a conversation. She'd smile and go back to her book, and I'd sit in awkward silence for a few more minutes. After an hour or so, the plane landed. As she was walking down the loading bridge, I caught up with her and went for the gold. Okay, listen, I'm normally not this upfront, but every time I talk to you, you smile at me. Would you like to grab some dinner before you go, wherever it is you're going? She smiles one last time and says to me, Lo siento, pero no hablo inglés. Adios. I wish I'd paid attention in Spanish class. Story 5. Slightly off topic, but this thread made me remember. A female friend of mine was cooking for her then boyfriend and was trying to get the lid off a jar that just wouldn't budge. The boyfriend sees this, and wanting to show off, grabs a jar from her hands and proceeds for the next few minutes to turn 5 shades of purple trying to open it. To no avail. Lid 1, testosterone 0. My friend, being well impressed from this show of manliness, is at the time hugging him from behind and peeking over his shoulder at the proceedings, trying very hard not to laugh. The boyfriend, refusing to admit defeat, pulls out the first thing he finds from the kitchen drawers, which is this thin, wickedly sharp fillet utensil. The idea being that if he gets part of the lid bent, the vacuum will release and so on. He slips, and accidentally hurts her. Panic ensues. Ambulance is summoned. To cut a long, gory story short, friend gets to keep eye and surprisingly retains 100% vision sometime later. After walking around with a straight out of a horror movie red eye for a few months, friend replaces boyfriend shortly thereafter. I guess she just couldn't look at him the same way again. Story 6. I had to interview an incredibly attractive classmate as part of a class in managing intercultural teams. It is not often I give a woman a 10 rating, but this woman was definitely about a 9.5. Long legs, soft features, athletic, nerdy, a PhD student in nanomaterials, and extremely nice. The assignment was to interview each other about our upbringing in different cultures. I'm from the USA and she was from Thailand, and to write a report about how our childhood influenced our education. Not only was this woman very attractive, she bore a striking resemblance to my most recent ex-girlfriend. Prior to the assignment, we were made to take a seminar in human subject ethics, so keep that in mind. Our interview was done in a coffee shop, and the only obvious sign that we were not on a date was that we were both recording and typing each other's responses as we went. We only stayed on topic for about 10 minutes before a discussion strayed into some very personal questions. Are you single? She asked very bluntly at one point. She was in a long-distance relationship at the time, and we talked about how difficult and frustrating that can be. All the signs were there, though. The body language, the twirling of hair, and the forward engaged posture. After an hour, we decided we had gone far enough off topic that we would need to meet again to finish the assignment. After this encounter, I was feeling as if I'd just been on the most successful first date of my life, but was trying to keep my wits about me to remain professional. At our second meeting, things went pretty much the same, and she actually said she had told me things she had not yet told anybody else in the States, including her boyfriend. I let my excitement get the better of me at this point. I leaned in and brushed her hand to get her attention, looked her in the eyes and told her I thought she was beautiful. She looked up at me, as if waiting for me to say something. Then it went horribly wrong. Katie, I know you have a boyfriend, but I was wondering if you would let me take you out for coffee sometime. Her response will be forever ingrained into my memory.
First of all, my name's not Katie. And second of all, we're already having coffee. If you wanted to ask me out on a date, you should not have used this assignment as an excuse to do so. I think you're cute, but call me when you know my name. Katie was my ex's name, and Tenna, the girl I was interviewing, knew this. Story 7. I did the reverse and totally blew up a flirting attempt in a bar. Still never lived it down to this day. I'm a geek or jock or socially blunt and caustic or schmuck or sinner or savior. I was in a bar, intoxicated, and an actual living, breathing female strikes up a conversation with me. Rare event. Conversation goes down like this. Want to come back to my place? Why? What's at your place? Well, we could just hang out and do what? Why? Isn't it fun here? Oh yeah, but, we could talk but we're talking now and there's music. I love music. Oh yeah, I guess. We could play music or have coffee? Coffee? Who the hell drinks coffee at 1 a.m.? Are you a vampire or something? She's a little flustered at this point. Anyhow, this goes on and gets direct. It falls straight into hell. Look, just come back to my place and we can have some fun. This is where the wheels completely fall off. Fun? Fun? You're lying. Do you have an Xbox? No? Well, I have an Xbox. I'm gonna go home and play Xbox. Kapow! Girl mortified. Whole bar was silent. I'm frozen, mid-rant, finger-pointing, completely unable to figure out what the hell I'm doing. Anyhow, after that, I got kicked out and a truck backed me over while I was trying to sneak back into the store next to the bar. Never did play Xbox. Sad panda. Story 8. This was an event building for months in advance. My sister had been hearing some positive comments about me from a friend, and she decided to set us up. Except I wasn't even in high school, and our date consisted of watching movies in the same room on different couches. All I could do was eat Twizzlers and make stupid comments, so I don't remember having much meaningful conversation. Yet somehow we moved into my parents' room to watch a movie on the TV, which had us laying next to each other in the corner of the bed, an extremely awkward position. Our necks had to crook upward just to see the TV. Well, I, being the Romeo my mind told me I was, decided it was time to step it up. So I put my arm around her shoulder, displacing my balance and causing me to strain just to stay on the bed with my arm, which is basically hyperextended, still over her shoulder. I maintained this for about 3 minutes, and she just had this bored look in her face as she watched the movie with utmost focus. I spoke up. Perhaps she was just hiding her excitement. Do you like this? Quite possibly the best way to phrase what was on my mind. She didn't, apparently. She just shrugged her shoulders, and so I slowly dragged my arm across her back and folded it under my body like a bird's leg. That was pretty much the end of the talking for the night. Story 9. I once dated this girl I super liked. I went to her house and she said, "Let's not go out. Let's hang here in my place." I was happy. Took this as a sign from her that she doesn't want to follow the usual dating procedure, maybe even skip a few steps. So we hang and I totally flirt like crazy. I'm at the top of my game, and most of my advances she accepted and flirted back. Suddenly his 2 guy friends come to play poker and totally ruins my game. They now controlled the conversation and kept talking about things I couldn't relate to. See, all 3 of them, the girl and 2 guys, all grew up together. I decided that as a last-ditch effort to assert my alpha male qualities, we should go online and try to see who can last longer watching disturbing videos and document each other watching it. Needless to say, we tried it. The girl's experience was bad. Her face looked very disgusted. Not just at the video, but you can visibly see her disgust at me for even knowing about it. I saw my stock went down so fast. She became very cold to my advances after. I don't even know why I suggested it in the first place. I guess I was thinking they would all get a kick out of it. Turns out their tolerance for that sort of thing is way less than mine. One of the most embarrassing failures of my life. Drove home whispering to myself nonstop. Stupid, 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 stupid. Story 10. I really liked this one girl that blossomed over the summer and turned into a mega hot Euro-style babe. It wasn't until later I realized that she liked me prior to this year. So she had a best friend and they were standing in line, trying to hand in some end-of-the-year art projects. The girl I liked was standing in line holding hers, which was this awesome, very carefully crafted papier-mâché anime-style character with graffiti down the side. Super cool stuff. I thought, who cares? It's the end of the year. If I don't ask her out now, I'm doomed. So I got up and went over to her rather quickly and within seconds, ruined her project and any hope of ever seeing her. Through my intense concentration, didn't realize my thing slapped a coffee out of her hand. She was holding it lightly. Hit her project and her. It was boiling hot and she screamed. jumping and in the process stomping on her cool mache character. Everyone turned and looked at me. I was frozen in fear. Everyone was laughing. My teacher did a big facepalm, and I basically ran out of the school not handing in my final project and failing art class. Class act, bro. Also, follow-up, ran into her 3 years later at a party. We got hammered and laughed about it, then did it in a park before she took off to Japan. Story 11. Back in high school, I was on a date with a very pretty girl and things were going great until she injured her hand in the swing. To this day, I still don't know what I should do in a situation like that because it wasn't serious enough to require medical assistance, but it was serious enough that you can't just carry on the date as if nothing happened. Anyways, I took her hand and tried to slurp the wound off. She flinched away and gave a nervous, screamed-out laughter. Haha. Same girl. I thought I could impress her by smoothly talking her into an establishment. I got yelled at by a bouncer twice my size, and everyone around us laughed at me. I thought real life worked like the movies. Different girl this time, but still in high school. I was on a date and was determined to get to at least second base with this girl. Again, thinking real life worked like the movies. I went and grabbed this girl as soon as the theater went dark. Before I graduated high school, I still had a lot to learn. I was with this girl and we made a bet where I had to kiss her if I lost. I lost, but I'm a terrible kisser, and I've never kissed standing up. Regardless, I went in for a kiss and apparently it looked so stupid that this couple that walked by us told me to practice that thing. It's funny to me now, but you couldn't believe how embarrassed I was. Story 12. Once I picked up a street worker. Well, sort of. I should point out I'm not really a fan of clubs. Definitely not now, but only slightly more enthusiastic, if that's the word. Back in my 20s. Anyway, my trustafarian roommate at the time loved clubs, so he offered to pay my way and give me some money for drinks, etc. How could I refuse? So we get to the club and we're drinking pretty solid. The workers are really pretty cute, as it's a better than average club. So I imagine. One girl comes by and chats with me, and my friend and I buy her a few drinks. What the hell, it's not my money. She's cool, or at least she's doing a good acting job of being cool, and we have a nice conversation. My buddy's more hammered than me and getting pretty obnoxious. Too far too gone to have a real conversation. So it's me and this worker keeping the conversation going, and we seem to have a real rapport. I know, that's just her job, and she wanted tips. But hell, you can't fake everything. And she wasn't faking interest. I soon found out. It was time for her to dance again, so she went on stage and I did her thing. Smoking hot, by the way. And a little later, she came over and asked if I wanted to dance. Yes, please, I said. So she takes my hand and leads me over to the dance area, where some beefy-looking bouncers are hovering nearby. If you've never been to a club, the number one rule, especially during a dance, is no touching. Actually, in college, I went to a club in which no one cared about this rule, but that's a whole other story. So I sit in the chair, hands by my side, and she's dancing away when she says, I'm not supposed to meet with customers, but you're making me feel so good and I want to meet you later. I say something like, that's a good idea. Let me write down your number. She says no. If her boss sees her giving or taking a number, she'll get fired. So I say, okay, just tell me. I'll memorize it. She smiles at this simple solution. So she says the number, I repeat it back and say I'll call her later. She says she finishes around midnight or something. I'm kind of amazed that it doesn't seem to be a trick for a tip or for more drinks. So she goes away with a wink and smile, literally. I spend the next 5 minutes burning that number into my brain. I hadn't considered the idea that this chick is not someone to really want to be with. Well, I considered it, but I was hammered. So careful consideration went out the window. Later that night I called. She answers the phone and seems the same cool person I talked to earlier. Then the conversation gets a little awkward. Her. So, do you like to party? Me, naive and not really understanding her. Yeah, sure. Her. What kind of partying do you do? Me, naive, not really understanding her. Well, I go out and hit the club sometimes, and her. Me, naive, not really understanding her. What about you? Her. Me, naive, not really understanding her. Oh. It took about 5 full seconds of filtering to get her meaning. Oh, that. Hey, cut me some slack. It was the mid-90s, a more innocent time. Meanwhile, during this conversation, it's clear she's partaking of substances as we were speaking. I was out of my element already. I hadn't even met up with her. I make an excuse and say I'll call her back later, then hang up. That was the end of that. Somehow I wasn't turned on anymore by the hot but obviously unstable worker. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 13. There are a lot of comments, so I don't think anyone will get to read this. Plus, it's long as hell. I wrote a Yelp review on Barnes & Noble which contained this as a review. It's my most awkward flirtation attempt ever, and it's 100% true. This story begins 3 years ago. It was an ordinary day and I needed to use an ATM. I stopped by the Publix and used one of the outdoor ATMs. On my way back to my car, I noticed something glistening in the hot, bright summer sun. It was a small, partially open bag of glitter. There's a Michael's in the shopping center, so a valid assumption would be that it came from there and via happenstance some poor soul dropped the baggie on the ground. If you're not familiar with what a Michael's is, try to imagine a mecca women really, really, really love. Okay, now take away the food. Right, now subtract Oprah. We're on the right track here. Remove the Daniel Steele novels. Bingo. Arts and crafts paraphernalia. Naturally, I did what any normal human being in my situation would do. I pocketed the hell out of that glitter. You never know when you'll need glitter, and having a pocket full of it is like having a pocket full of glitter. I had trouble with a good metaphor in that one. I spent like 15 seconds trying to think of something. I rose to grab myself a bottle of fine Guinness Draught and promptly gave up. I hope you forgive me. It's been a long day. With the glitter in my pocket, I proceeded along with my day. What followed was a typical day. That is, until I wanted to buy myself a book. I made my way to this BN since I was nearby. I perused the books when out of the corner of my eye I saw a cute girl. Oh, she was so adorable. Not at all my type, but she had a nice back and pretty hair, so I overlooked the daddy issues she had stamped on her lower back. She also happened to work there. I have this rule. Don't hit on women while they're working. Just don't bother people with personal stuff while they're working because you're not special and every other mundane out there thinks he's special when he flirts with a cute waitress. So I hit on her. I asked for her help and made fun of the joking banter. She was digging it and inevitably asked me for my name. I said, Orlando, and I followed it up with what I consider the stupidest flirting move anyone has ever pulled. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a handful of glitter. I perfectly synchronized throwing this handful into the air with the next words that left my mouth. Like Orlando magic. Glitter everywhere. Why did I do this? I thought it would be so stupid it would make her laugh, and perhaps pity or subjective humor would entice her. I pride myself, or I used to, in pushing the envelope when it comes to courting. This, I learned about a second after the magical thrust of pixie dust, was not one of those situations. Like I said, glitter everywhere, mostly her face. Ow! My eye! My eye! My eye! Glitter to the face. Was I a gentleman? No. I walked out. Not just walked out, speed walked. That thing that 50-year-old women do to stay in shape? My escape technique. I acted completely oblivious to this girl and the fact that I just maced her with sparking iridescent plastic bits. I hadn't set foot in that Barnes & Noble since, and I've told this story of utter failure to a select few, until now. Today I went back to the store since I was in the neighborhood and wanted to celebrate an oddly successful meeting by treating myself to a book. I had, for the most part, forgotten all about what happened here for a brief moment, until I entered. Then I had this, oh right, I'm a schmuck moment. I didn't turn around and leave because I assumed after 3 years this girl wouldn't still be working here. I was right, but amazingly enough, she just happened to be shopping. I can't make this up. Not only was she there, but she wasted no time in walking toward me with a deterministic demeanor. I wanted to bless her with a little deja vu and speed walk out of there, but I couldn't. I was so painstakingly shocked by the fact that this was happening that I couldn't even move. I stood there and looked at her. When she finally arrived and stood right in front of me, looking up at me with victory in her eyes, I felt defeated and emasculated. We're face to face. She's totally invading my personal space in a way that her eyelashes could probably tickle my chest if she really tried. And she says, Hey Glitter, what the hell? She didn't seem mad. She just had this slight look of disapproval. And I frankly expected her to kick me at the very least. I wasn't sure how to respond to that. I didn't put much thought into what I said next. I think it defaulted into snarky Orlando mode. I looked at her plainly and just said, Did you at least get the joke? She literally burst out laughing. And she walked away. So crazy. Story 14. I went to the bar 2 nights ago and saw one of the most stunning girls I've ever seen in my life. After an hour or two, my party was ready to leave. Getting drinks from her, coupled with a little bit of small talk we engaged in, I decided to introduce myself and to leave my number. I figured it was a long shot, but I didn't think I could live with myself if I left without trying. So up I go. I tell her my name and ask if I can give her my number. She had a pretty awkward look on her face, and it was pretty obvious I caught her off guard. I then said, You have a boyfriend? And she replied, Yeah. I just gave her a smile and thanked her for the drinks. The next day, I was walking to my car and the sun was in my eyes and I could see this tall Asian girl walking towards me. I'm thinking to myself, wow, this girl is beautiful. Just as she passes me, I walk under some shade and I can see it was the bartender from the night before and she's giving me the biggest smile ever. It was just at the last possible second before passing her that I put all of this together in my head. As a result, I had no time to reciprocate her lovely smile. Kicking myself for the swing and the miss, I decided to go to the bar again. Although I was not sure if she would be there or not, there was some kind of haiku battle at the bar and they're always pretty entertaining. I thought to myself, great. If she's here, I will let her make a move, and if not, the haiku battle will fill the void. I'm also thinking that I probably just spooked her and she had no idea what to say, but after seeing that smile, I thought maybe she was just in panic mode. Later that night, I'm back at the bar. I walk in and see her. She's working. Great. She's smiling at me again. Awesome. So excited. I go up to her and in one verbal movement, I say, I saw you the other day that the sun was in my eyes. And she just kept smiling at me. She has no idea what the heck I'm talking about and then politely asks me what I would like to drink. I answer Canadian, take my drink, find a seat and enter haiku heaven. Story 15. I got 2 awkward and 1 awesome story that I must share. My first awkward story would be when I had a huge crush on this girl. Anyway, one day after school, I was walking her home as usual, and whatever we talked about ended in a thumb war competition. She got forceful and pulled me towards her. At that point, neither of us had realized the somewhat awesomeness of that moment. We kept on playing until I tried pinching her thumb and accidentally pinched her melon. I apologized, but she didn't want to talk to me anymore. The second awkward story happened to a friend of mine. I'd been dating this really cute Asian chick for about 3 months, and he invited her to come over to my apartment for a party. My friend got hammered, and then walked up to who he thought was his girlfriend and started making out. For whatever reason, this girl didn't fight back, and his girlfriend spotted him and started yelling at him. I'm sorry, but you all look alike, was his reply. Needless to say, he spent the rest of the evening in anger or emo mode, spoiling the party. The awesome moment. Back when I was still in training for the military, a guy in our platoon broke one of his legs during an obstacle course. On the only weekend off he had, we went to a bar, got really hammered. This injured friend wasn't having that great of a time until some girl took some interest in him, and we convinced her that this was a war wound that happened after he had saved us. 3 people, including myself, from an ambush. But he got harmed in the leg. But he got it. Story 16. 2 short stories about the same girl. I don't know if it counts as flirting, but embarrassing nonetheless. First one, I hang out with this girl a lot and we always sort of flirt in a friendly way and have even made out a couple times, but nothing more. As of now. I don't remember this, but we were hammered and wrestling on the floor at a party. While wrestling, she got hurt real bad and went to the bathroom. What's embarrassing is that she was hurt by my thing. I'm told it was the funniest thing ever. There were like 30 people at this party and I'm reminded of this constantly, even though it's been like 2 years. Second one, more recent, New Year's this year. My friend and I are hanging out at a party. I don't remember this either, but it's what she tells me. Some guy kept trying to hit on her and she was not feeling it. He laid next to her and tried to spoon or something. She texted me asking for help. I walk over and lay in between them. I lay next to her, wrapped my arm around her and spooned the living hell out of her. She said she was too tired to get me off her, so we just fell asleep. We're in the middle of the living floor and there's like 10 other people sleeping there too. In the morning, we wake up and I'm still so messed up I don't even notice I have my arm all around her and talk to people for a few minutes. She finally turns her head and whispers in my ear and I came back to reality and jumped away, feeling like an idiot. Everyone gets a little laugh because it was obvious what happened, and to top it off, she tells the thing in the eye story, and everyone laughed at it. We still hang out though, so I guess she wasn't put off by it. Story 17. In college, I was looking out the top floor window with binoculars and spotted the hottest girl ever. Spent about a year gathering info on her. Casual stalking, not psycho stalking. Finally, I man up and gather the courage to create an anonymous secret admirer Yahoo email and send her a note. I can be pretty funny in that setting, but when she said, "Thanks for always making me laugh," it jinxed me, so that I was trying to be funny instead of just being funny. She went on vacation for a few weeks and was away from her email, leaving me to write long, awkwardly almost funny, but maybe creepy emails to her, including a joke about someone who worked at the college named Cunts, to which I didn't respond when she returned. I finally got the nerve to say hi to her in real life, like a boss. With her also hot friend sitting there with her, so I had to endure double scrutiny. Had my buddy who kind of used to know her call her to get the scoop on her reaction. She said it was not even attractive, even though I was in the best shape of my life and looking pretty good in my opinion. Still, the emails had already ruined it for me. It didn't quite compute in my mind yet, so I called her up right after talking to my buddy and asked her if she wanted to do something with him and me. She said she had to go to a birthday party at a bar that night. I took that as a rejection. She ended the call with, "Take care," which, to this day, whenever I hear it, still translates in my brain as "go away." Story 18. So I've had this crush on this girl I go to school with for as long as I've known her. I just happened to see her at the school dubstep party and I'm candy flipping, so I'm pretty excited and in the zone. So I approached her. I forget the exact details of what happened next, but we ended up making out several times. When the party's over, she invites me to an after party, but I just keep saying, "Let's just take a walk for a while and talk." Yeah, to be honest, I really just wanted to get to know her better because I thought she was amazing. However, my mind is not comprehending the creepiness of my words at that moment. To make sure that she'd never talk to me again, I sent her a message on Facebook a few days later. It's something along the lines of, "Hey, I had a really great time hanging out with you the other night." But then I proceeded to say, "You're a really great kisser," in the message. This is something that would be okay to say in middle school. Consequently, I'm 21 and a senior in college. Nail in the coffin. Needless to say, I didn't get a reply. I saw her again at another dubstep party, but I didn't approach her because I felt far too embarrassed. Story of my love life. Story 19. Okay, here's the setup. In high school, a guy in the county where I lived ran a free chat line. It was called Dial a Spaz. Anybody? It connected 4 random people into a phone conference for 2 to 3 minutes, then disconnected them. I managed to get this girl to call me and we ended up talking on the phone a bunch. Finally, I got up the guts to ask her if she wanted to meet in person. She agreed. So we decided to meet at the top of a hill after school. We went to schools on opposite sides of the hill. We were both on our bikes. So the time comes, I show up, she shows up. Great. She's nice, cute, not repulsed by me. Better than pretty much every encounter with a female to date. Now we're riding our bikes down through a neighborhood and I decide to show her my mad wheelie skills. I ride this long coaster wheelie in front of her, surprising even myself, but then I loop it, jump off the back and end up running down the street, still holding onto the handlebars. Before she can stop, she careens into me, takes a header and lands on her back. She's rolling around on the ground in pain for what seemed like hours. Finally managing to get to her feet. Of course, I can't stop saying, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" Blah, 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 blah. I offer to walk her home, but she politely says no thanks. The next and last time we spoke on the phone, she told me she had a broken tailbone, that she'd need to sit in a donut-shaped pillow for the next 6 weeks. Believe it or not, this story has a part 2, which occurs about 4 years later. But I've used up my time here. Next caller. Story 20. I was friends with this cute girl for a while, and I thought we would maybe hook up one day, but I was never really sure. I had other girls in mind that I would have rather hooked up with at the time, but I should have been grateful to get anything. One night, me and a group of friends were all pre-gaming for a party at this girl's house, and I was making this girl laugh left and right. Out of nowhere, she says that she wants to make out with me tonight. She says this in front of me and about 8 or so other people. Our response was probably something like, "Hell yeah." It's possible I said something more clever, but I'm not sure. So we all went to a party. I don't remember how hammered I was, and because of what she said to me at the house, I could have technically walked up to her at any point at the party and started making out with her. But instead, I wanted to just socialize with some friends and just do it at her place. I'm 23 years old, and to this day, I still haven't had a girlfriend. Some people that I've told this to ask me if I'm not straight, since I've been single for so long. I actually never wanted to be in a relationship until I dropped out of school, almost 3 years ago. I hated pretty much all the people, male and female, in my high school, so a relationship then basically wasn't even possible. As far as college goes, I didn't want a relationship to get in my way. Although I did ask one girl out, but got rejected. Each year of that has been spent in a different state, and one of those years I pretty much kept myself in total isolation. The basic reason why I've never made out with a chick at a party is because I get turned on pretty easily. And I feel like if I were to do that, then I'd have one forever that people would pick up on. I think if I can just get something steady going, this will go away. So anyway, the girl leaves the party and texts me about coming over. It's only like 12 a.m. at this point. I'm thinking she'll be up until about 3. I hang out at the party for a while and start calling her, but she's not answering her phone. I head over to her house and no answer. She's passed out. I feel like the same thing may have happened again, but I'm not sure. Either way, I knew I still had the chance, and she was soon going to be moving to another place. I went over to try to hang out and sleep with her on a random night, and it turned out that she was now doing her male roommate. They had never been attracted to each other, and then they randomly started doing it at the end because they were about to split. After this, I don't think I ever saw her again. This doesn't really have much to do with the topic of this post, but it's just a bad missed opportunity story, which I have many of. Story 21. In high school, a friend of mine, we'll call him Paul, had asked this popular sophomore, or freshman, girl to the senior prom. Paul was this really awkward, geeky guy who had never had a girlfriend before, and this girl was a really beautiful, blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl who was a cheerleader. It was in some class with her, and played it off as this platonic, hey, I'm not into you or anything, but do you want to go to the senior prom just for the hell of it kind of thing? She accepted because she would be one of the 2 or 3 girls in her grade who'd be going to the senior prom, and she was psyched about this. It's also worth noting that Paul hadn't ever had a girlfriend for lack of trying. He was kind of creepy, but I guess this girl was willing to look past that for the potential status ramifications. He was probably 18 and she was probably like 15, which doesn't seem like a huge difference to me now, but at the time was definitely sort of weird. So I remember a group of my friends and our dates standing around waiting to get in or taking photos or something. So Paul puts his arm around his date's shoulder. This is kind of weird because we all know that she's not into him, and that he had gotten her to be his date on the pretense that it was going to be platonic and totally non-romantic. I remember the cheerleader girl getting this really creeped out and frightened look on her face. And she looks like she's trying to make up her mind about whether or not she's going to say something. Everyone is awkwardly looking at them, wondering what is going to happen next. Meanwhile, Paul's hand is coming down. For some reason, Paul thought it would be okay to rest his hand on her. I guess he must have been thinking, hey, now that I've wrapped my arm around this girl, I don't know what to do with my hand. I'll just casually grab some. As soon as he did this, 3 or 4 people just kind of all simultaneously freaked out and intervened. The girl was so mortified she didn't really say anything. Needless to say, Paul spent the rest of the night stag. I have no idea what the girl did after that, but she sure as hell stayed the hell away from Paul and the rest of my group of friends. The folly of youth.
Girls, what was the most obvious hint you dropped and the guy just didn't get it? I once asked a guy if I could kiss him. We had been hanging out in a way that was conducive to that, and he said yes. I kissed him. It was great, but then we just parted ways in a natural way. 3 days later, this man called me all shocked that I was hitting on him. He told a friend about the interaction and they had to point it out. Sir, I literally kissed you. Story 2. I once was interested in a guy in my friendship group. We'd been flirting for a while. A group of us came back to my place for drinks after a night out, and 2 guys, including the guy I liked, decided to stay over because it was late. I was going to bed and said, one of you could sleep in my bed with me since there's only one couch in the living room. He was like, no worries, all good, we'll manage. I literally invited him into my bed. Lol. He realized what had happened like half an hour later after I'd taken all my makeup off and got on my grottiest pajamas, of course. Better late than ever, though. 6 years later and we're engaged, so I can't complain. Story 3. I had a crush on this girl from literally kindergarten until grade 8. We were at a friend's house party just before high school. I had no experience with girls, plus this girl in particular made me crazy. Anyway, I'm in the bathroom, fixing my hair. She came in, turned the light off and locked the door, grabbed my hand and pulled me into the shower. One of those single-person showers with a sliding glass door. She tried to shut the door with us in it there, but I panicked and left. It did not cross my mind at all she wanted to make out or something. Not until years later did I realize. I still think that my biggest regret was not understanding the situation. I was head over heels for her. Story 4. Okay, I'm a guy, but I just wanted to share my story about my current girlfriend. For context, I play rugby. We became good friends on the very first day we met. I had a difficult past, but she was always focused on her future. After about a week, she invited me to her house to watch a rugby game on TV. Saints, my favorite team, versus Exeter, her favorite. I thought it would just be some friendly banter, so I said yes. Nope, she was clinging to my arm the whole time, throwing out compliments. Some friends do this, right? After the game, I invited her to the local rugby match since I was a winger for the team. She seemed shocked, but said yes. Skipped to Saturday, where I saw her in the crowd while I warmed up and she blew a kiss at me. Still thought this was normal, and I waved back. Our team won the game. Believe it or not, she ran onto her small pitch and jumped into my arms. I don't know how, but I still thought this was fine. I fell to the ground because I wasn't expecting her to run onto the pitch, and then she kissed me. I still didn't know. A month later, I texted her saying I had feelings for her. She jokingly called me stupid and said she was dropping hints everywhere and that she liked me too. I finally realized what had been happening and asked her out, and she said yes. And yes, she still celebrates the same way when my team wins a game. Seriously, us guys aren't that smart, are we? Story 5. I asked him out on a movie date after already spending hours talking to him. Just the 2 of us. I'd given him lots of compliments and told him how much I loved being around him and how I really enjoyed his company. During the date, I paid for the tickets, he paid for the snacks. I moved to sit closer and tried to subtly hold his hand. He genuinely thought I just wanted the armrest and moved away from me. I literally had to tell him I had feelings for him after the movie, and even then, he asked me what I meant. We're married now, with 2 kids, and I know he'll never be unfaithful because he'll never ever notice anyone flirting with him. And of course, there's also trust and loyalty. Story 6. After dinner and drinks, I asked if he wanted to go back to my place and watch Bob's Burgers. He replied that he didn't really like cartoons. I then said, "You don't have to watch anything. We can do other things." He responded with a genuinely puzzled expression. Then what would we do? I figured it was clear he wasn't interested, so I concluded we'd had fun and called it a night, especially since he'd mentioned wanting to avoid the traffic getting home. I was a bit bummed, but I figured life goes on. Then about 20 minutes later, he texted me and said, "Not gonna lie, I wanted you so badly tonight." I replied, "I didn't think so because I invited you up and you declined." Suddenly, he realized I'd been inviting him for intimacy. He became very excited and asked if he could come back over. He did and finally understood the situation. We had snacks and drinks and were intimate. We dated for a few months after that. He was a pretty cool guy, but absolutely clueless. Story 7. Not a girl, but I can speak to this one. When I was 17, I went to a lake party with about 6 other people, including a girl I knew. When I got there, she asked if we could pretend to be dating because one of the other guys kept asking her out and she wasn't interested. Hint number 1. I agreed and we hung out. She kept holding my hand, cuddling up to me, etc. Hint number 2. Eventually, we all went swimming in the lake. I didn't realize there would be swimming, so I ended up in my garments. It was a big lake, and eventually, this girl and I were away from the others. She asked if I minded if she swam without anything. Hint number 3, which I didn't. We swam for a while, and she eventually wanted to rejoin the group. She was fairly short, and they were in deeper water, so she asked if she could hang on to my shoulders. So I had this girl pressing against my back. Hint number 4, while we swam. She stopped me partway and said she didn't want to rejoin the group yet, so she got off my shoulders. She put her arm around me, and I did the same to her while we just floated for a bit. Hint number 5. Eventually, she then asked if she could kiss me, which I agreed to. Obvious flirting number 6. We shared a short, rather chaste kiss. Don't forget that I still thought we were just friends pretending to date at this point, before she quickly swam off and I didn't see her anymore that night. I don't recall seeing her much ever again after that night, actually. It wasn't until I was in my early 20s that it finally hit me what had actually been happening. So yes, I was oblivious enough to not get the hint, even when a girl literally kissed me. Story 8. I'm a man, so this isn't exactly what you asked for, but I'd love to share the story of how my wife of almost 6 years and I got together, as it somewhat applies to the topic. I met her when I was 35. I was single, and she had a boyfriend. We had incredible chemistry, but I had been through enough relationships by then and was determined to maintain a solid friendship. We were friends, and I was an adult, committed to not doing anything that might disrespect that boundary. Throughout the summer, we got to know each other more and more. It was a perfect, effortless, close friendship. Summer ended, and so did her relationship. I did not see this as an opportunity for anything more than our friendship. Sure, it would be perfect together, but I pushed those thoughts aside because, again, I didn't want to disrespect her or our friendship. We would hang out, go dancing with friends, and so on. She was newly single, but we had been friends before and nothing really changed. So, summer turned to fall. One Friday night in October, we were supposed to go out dancing with friends. She asked, "Would you rather just stay in and watch a movie?" Would I ever? That's one of my favorite things to do. And as an aficionado of bad movies, I love showing friends great bad movies that I adore. And I just the movie. The 1980s film The Apple. A disco rock opera, dystopian biblical allegory musical about a future. 1994, run by an evil disco record producer who might also be the devil. No, really. So, DVD in hand, I went over to her new apartment. When I got there, her living room was a huge space with a tiny 13-inch TV or DVD combo unit. Well, not ideal, but it would have to do. Then she said, "If you want, we can watch it on the iMac in my bedroom." And I replied, "Sure, that's fine." Again, I was reading nothing into this. Friends can watch a movie in a bedroom. That's a thing friends can do. So we got into the bedroom and I loaded the disc on the iMac. I was ready to show her this movie. I was sitting on the edge of the bed and she sat back against the headboard, propped up by pillows. She said, "You don't have to sit all the way up there. You can sit back here if you want." Again, I was taking 0 hints. I didn't want to be that guy and misinterpret things. I genuinely valued and respected our friendship, but I said sure and sat back there next to her. Friends can do that. It was a bit chilly, so she got under the blanket. It was October, after all. She then told me that if I was cold, I could get under them, too. Sure, I thought. I guess that's fine. Friends can sit under the same blanket. That's not weird. Then she started getting closer and cozying up to me. I swear I'm not being coy when I say my thoughts at that moment were, okay, well, I guess friends can snuggle. That doesn't mean anything. I was picking up no signals at all. Then she started kissing me. And we've been together ever since. I'm neither cool nor clever. Story 9. Guy here. Just 2 examples where I didn't get the hint and it haunts me. Went out with a few friends to a few bars and a club. I wasn't drinking, so I drove everyone there and everyone back. 2 girls and 2 guys and me in the car home, and my friend jumps in the front and says we should drop off the other couple and the guy first, and she'll stay in the car with me even though we pass her house on the way to the others. For some reason I said that's stupid. Her place is literally just over there and dropped her off first. As I pull away from her house after dropping her off, the others tell me that I'm an idiot, and I still didn't get it until they basically spelled it out for me and had been hinting at me a few times during the night out, apparently. Another time, I was traveling with my newish girlfriend and her best friend. I was already in the place, and they were joining me. Her friend told me to save some money, we can just get the one room, and as the bed's big, I say don't worry about it, the other rooms are super cheap, and got 2 rooms. I got told I was being an idiot. I thought for spending extra money when it's not needed, and recently I got told that no, I was an idiot, as they were seeing if I'd be happy for a night with both, and totally missed a shot I didn't know was happening. Story 10. As a man, I can say that I have one of the most dumb hints that I didn't get. I was only young, maybe 22, and there was a girl who was friends with a friend who used to hang out with us, and for months, we'd always chat on nights out, dance together, and so on. She was a literal model, whereas I was back then, at best, a solid 6.5. Eventually, we were friends outright and would hang out outside of our friend group. We'd go for a day out at the beach, that kind of thing, and I just thought we were friends, all innocent on my end. I thought she was really attractive and we got on really well, but I knew she was way out of my league, so I didn't even bother thinking about her that way. So fast forward, and we all head to Bournemouth for a long weekend in the summer. Spend the day on the beach, drinking and sunbathing, just chilling out. We got down there, first night all good, had food, found a bar, all good. Next day we're down at the beach and drinking all day. She's asking me to apply her suntan lotion, etc., and a bit touchy-feely, but I just put it down to drink and it being innocent. We head out that night and more drinking, and she says she's not feeling too good and wants to leave, and asks me to help her back to the hotel. Obviously, I oblige. I want my friend to get back safely, and I walk her back to the hotel and get her up to her room, and she says she didn't have any water. As it is, I'm a prepared person and have a few bottles in my room, so I went to mine, got a bottle of water, and take it back to her. She thanks me and says she needs to go to bed. I say, okay, good night. Remember to drink your water. And she asks me if I was going back out. I said no, I was just gonna head to bed, and she asks if I want to share her bed with her because she's feeling like she wants some company. Again, I assume she means to talk, and I agree. I took my shoes, socks, and jeans off and got in with my t-shirt on, trying to be respectful. She gets and I lay there on my back, stiff as a board with my hands on my chest, trying not to come across creepy or anything. She then puts her hand on my chest to cuddle, grabs one of my hands and puts my arm around her. Again, I go with it and keep talking, but I'm feeling uncomfortable. We talk for a while and she rolls over. I'm thinking, thank God. Then she asks me to cuddle with her. I agree, but again, I'm like, crap, I don't want her to think I'm some awful creep. I feel really uncomfortable and awkwardly spoon her. 5 minutes into that, she goes, this garment is making me mad. Again, making me really uncomfortable, and turns to face me and cuddle in, so I quickly look in any other direction than at her, and before I know it, they're pressing against me. Then she complains that my shirt is uncomfortable. By this point, we're both in bed together. Me laid on my back, her laid with her hand on my chest. I'm trying as hard as I possibly can with every ounce of willpower possible to try not to get too excited. And she then puts a leg over me. After maybe a minute, I think she eventually realized I'm not going to make a move or I'm not getting the obvious hint. And out of nowhere, she kissed me. Then I got the hint. Ended up dating for 18 months, but if she hadn't kissed me, she could have been in that bed with me and I'd never have made a move. Story 11. My first one-on-one day with my wife was at the public swimming pool. She was getting very close to me underwater, asking if her swimsuit looked okay and similar things. When we decided to leave the pool, I said we had to wait a minute before I could get out, for an obvious reason. She then suggested we change in the same changing room, and she changed in front of me, though with her back turned. I was quite confused, but respected her. When we arrived at her house, I was planning to stay the night on the sofa because her mom would be home. Her mom, who turned out to be a great wing woman, then announced she'd be sleeping at her boyfriend's place, leaving us the house to ourselves. Still no realization on my part. She left, and my wife said she was going to shower, but asked if I would come with her because she sometimes fainted in the shower. I stood just outside the shower, my ear against the door to listen in case she fell. All of a sudden, the door swung open, hitting my head, knocking some sense into me, I guess. My wife walked from the shower to her room, giving me a look I will never forget. That was the moment I thought, well, let's make a move. We were intimate that night. Story 12. Everyone else is responding as the person who missed the hint, so I'll throw in my story. I, a lesbian, went on a complete day with a girl without realizing it was a date. We were lab partners and occasionally hung out after class. I won 2 tickets to Six Flags through a college trip and invited her. Thus began the story of the most oblivious date of all time. She remarked that I looked really good in a particular shirt. My thoughts? Thanks, you too. She stayed exclusively with me instead of joining a group of her own friends who were also there. I figured she just felt obligated to stay with me since I'd given her the ticket. I even asked her if she wanted to meet up with them, and she declined. She held my hand on every single roller coaster. My internal monologue? Well, I bet she's just afraid of heights. She didn't let go of my hand afterward, and I just thought, I guess she was still rattled because of the roller coaster. She also held my hand on the merry-go-round. I didn't register this as odd because I was an idiot. We shared an ice cream sundae. I assumed she just wanted to save money. She offered to share the cherry. I graciously let her have the whole thing. I'm still not sure if this was meant to be flirty. She fell asleep on me during the bus ride back. I assumed she must just be really tired and didn't realize it. When we got back to my dorm, she said she didn't want to walk back to her own dorm and asked if she could spend the night with me. I told her there was probably a form we needed to fill out beforehand. She joked that she could sneak in through the window. I explained that my bed was quite small, and then I called her an Uber. A week later, a mutual asked when my second day with Julia was going to be. I asked her when the first one was. We did date briefly after that, but we broke up and moved on to different ends of the country when we both transferred colleges. C'est la vie. Story 13. I was on a very nice day with an extraordinarily sweet girl. She's really into the old vintage Middle Ages look. In my opinion, she's like a fairy tale girl. She's gorgeous, and I was very pleased to go out with her. We got some ice cream, walked around a bit, and just talked. At some point, we arrived at a secluded area by a lake and went right to the water's edge. I laid my jacket on the ground so she could sit without getting dirt on her self-made dress. The sun was reflecting on the water. It was warm and cozy, and our conversation deepened. We even had 2 Capri Suns prepared, which she found amusing. It already felt very much like a movie scene. Then, from one second to the next, it started to rain heavily. We stood up, intending to leave. I gave her my hoodie, as one does, and took my dirty jacket. At that point, she told me she had some hair on her forehead and asked me to help her remove it. I did. I took a close look at her face, held her head in my hands, and brushed the strands off her hair aside. I found this extremely odd as it's not something you typically need help with. It took me about 9 months to realize that I had let the perfect opportunity to kiss the girl of my dreams slip away, even though she practically asked for it. It was a very dreamy day with an even more dreamy girl, and I'm thankful for the experience, but I messed that up. Story 14. When I was 14 and summer had just begun, I was at a big start of summer party. I ended up in a wooden area away from everyone else with this girl. She grabbed my arm and rested her head on my shoulder as we walked. I knew she was interested in me, but I also didn't know how to act, so I just didn't say or do anything until we got back to the rest of the party. Another time when I was 18, I took a girl on a movie date and we ended up at a diner afterward. We had good chemistry and found ourselves in my car around midnight. I decided that Frank Ocean's Blonde would be a good album to play at the moment because it had some cool songs I wanted to show her. To be fair, the album still holds up as a vibe setter. You listen to the entire album, and again, I didn't make any moves. In retrospect, based on the situation and her body language, she absolutely wanted me to. Growing up is tough indeed. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 15. This isn't exactly what was asked, but here's a story about how I was oblivious as a lesbian. A girl I was friends with and knew liked women was holding my hands, kissing me on the cheek, openly flirting with me, and even referring to me as her wife. I honestly thought she meant it in an intense, close female friendship way until we came back from an outing with friends, and she said she hoped we would be close when we were old. It just hit me all at once how dense I had been. I honestly don't know what my hang-up was. My one point of defense is that she never explicitly asked me out. She just started acting a certain way towards me. My reasoning was that she was very attentive with her other friends, and if she wanted to date, she would explicitly say it. I'm still an idiot, though. Story 16. Guy here. I'm always going to get confused by hints because people are different. One person's, this is just a random thing I do that means nothing, is another person's, I want you badly and this is how I show it. During college, however, I was responsible for welcoming the new students, so I kind of felt a responsibility of getting to know the new students, but I also wanted to keep it very formal so the new students could trust me. So naturally, I didn't think anyone would see me in any other way than a guy they could trust and be comfortable with. Like if they had questions about subjects, books, or where to get the cheapest booze, I was a person they could ask. Anyways, at a party, I ended up sitting next to this girl, and I don't understand if this were hints per se, but I think she laughed a lot at my jokes and sat close to me. If I went to the toilet and then started to talk with other people, it wouldn't take long until she sought me out. When I retell the story, everybody says it was super obvious. But I have also experienced someone who has said something in the lines of, I'd really like to date someone like you, and said, okay, let's go on a date, but still getting rejected. Back to the original story. Eventually, me and this girl were alone. Then she asked me, is there something on my face? I looked and said no. She then started to cry and asked why I hadn't kissed her yet. Flabbergasted, I didn't know what else I should do. Then kissed her and she followed me home, where we slept together. Story 17. Not a girl, but I was definitely an oblivious boy when I was younger. I guess it must be the girl in my apartment block who told me to come back after getting my haircut to show her. When I returned and opened the door, she had loud music on and was dancing. I was so shocked that I closed the door and knocked loudly to announce my presence. That, or the time I was hanging out with my friend who went to the trouble of getting a mattress and putting in the living room for both of us to sleep on. I had previously slept on her couch while she slept in her single bed. Turns out she was waiting for me to make a move. Or maybe the time after a movie date and drinks at a pub afterward. Well, I was waiting for someone to drive me home, and she said, I really want to do something stupid. I was very confused as to what that could possibly have meant. Story 18. I was walking with a girl I'd had an on and off, somewhat flirtatious friendship with for a while. We'd been out for drinks with some friends, and I was partly supporting her down the street. She giggled and told me she had just had to get something off her chest. She'd been having dreams all week about us dating and being intimate, and asked, Isn't that funny? Apparently, as I found out a couple of weeks later when I tried to pursue the matter, that comment was intended as a joke. It was meant to highlight how we were such good, strictly platonic friends that she could tease me about dating and being intimate, since that would obviously never happen. She was irritated that I ignored her very clear message and tried to push things beyond friendship. Story 19. I've always been the type of guy who never picked up on hints. Over the past couple of years, I've grown close to a woman from work. Her face lights up with a smile every time I say hello. We were recently discussing stress at work, and she suggested we go out sometime. Another time, she and a colleague were talking about Latin dance. I joined the conversation as she suggested we go out dancing. Last week, I walked her back after the Christmas party. She'd had a few drinks, we talked about life and relationships. When I dropped her off, she said she loved me, and we briefly held hands. For context, I'm 20 years older than her, 53 versus 33, and I'm her boss, so I've been treading very, very carefully. We both recently ended long-term relationships. I've had very strong feelings for this woman for a long time, but after she dropped the I love you, I had to know. A relationship would come with a host of complications, but I had to understand where we stood. So, I invited her for coffee outside of work. She accepted. I laid my cards on the table and asked her about her feelings for me. Without hesitation, she said we're like family and that I'm like an older brother. I'm so happy, though, that I had the conversation rather than continuing to guess. Story 20. Guy here. We do get the hints most of the time, but sometimes we just don't find you attractive or interesting. Despite what the internet will tell you, we are not all desperate and we will not take just any girl that offers herself. I've been flirted with by some girls I haven't really liked and tried to let them down gently, but eventually had to resort to literally saying, Hey, I'm not interested, please stop trying. Once, I had to literally push off a girl from me who tried to hug and kiss me, even though I gave her zero signs of interest. I swear if I did the thing some of these girls did, I'd get the cops called on me. Story 21. Not a girl, but in my senior year of high school, 2 girls in my class were talking loudly next to me about how badly they wanted to be intimate with any guy going to XYZ University. I tried not to eavesdrop, but they went on, and at times in my general direction. Then they abruptly stopped and asked me what university I was going to. I told them XYZ University, trying my best to sound like I hadn't just heard everything they were saying, since eavesdropping isn't polite. One of them said, Yeah, I thought so. And they were quiet for a bit and started talking about something else, but in a normal, quieter voice. I still regret not picking up on that. It's a memory that gives me a good chuckle. Story 22. I was on a walk, nowhere in particular, and saw someone shoveling their walkway. They offered to help, and she accepted. We made small talk for a bit, then she mentioned she had just gone back in town after visiting her family. She said she felt lonely since she lived alone and had just left her family gathering. She invited me in for coffee, but I told her I still had a bit of coffee left. She started talking about some shows she really liked, and we discussed TV for a bit. I finished up and mentioned I should get going. She invited me in again, saying she'd get a pot of coffee going. I reminded her I hadn't finished the coffee I already had and said my goodbyes. I told my friend about her, since she knows some people near the area. She told me I was clueless. Could have been a nice friendship. Laugh out loud. Story 23. I struck up a friendship with this incredibly good-looking girl who was quiet and literally the nicest person I had ever met. She was oblivious to her own attractiveness. I was trying to do something right for once in my life, so I stayed in my lane. People would always say she liked me, but I told them they were being naive. This angel couldn't possibly see anything in terrible me, and they were just being nosy. Fast forward to my roommate going to see a cheesy movie with his girlfriend and raving about it. I told him he was a big old simp. I was really young back then, and someone like me would not see that movie under any circumstances. He bet me $20. I was thinking, easiest $20 I've ever made. Then picked up my phone, called my friend, and said, My roommate wants to take you to see movie title. Easiest $20 he ever made. I snuck into the movie to make my money back. Story 24. I was really good friends with a girl in my theater class during junior year. We used to make flirty jokes at each other all the time. Though looking back, she made most of them, and I just reacted. One day, the rest of our friend group decided to hang out somewhere else, leaving just me and her. We were talking, as usual, and she made one of her jokes, and we both laughed. Then she said, Except I'm only half joking. At this point, my brain kind of did a full reboot as I tried to untangle the mess my thoughts were in. She was also showing me pictures on her phone and very excitedly went to one folder, exclaiming, Ooh, these ones have a lot of melons. And I decided that was the time to be a gentleman and not look. I eventually got up the courage to tell her I liked her later that year, after one of our mutual friends told me she liked me. I kid you not. I was standing there, stirring for a solid minute at least, trying to figure out how to say it. Of course, she knew what I was trying to say after the first few, attempts. She even told me she had thought about just cutting me off and kissing me right there, which I like to believe is a fantasy every dorky, introverted guy in high school has, but she wanted to hear me say it first. She is now my fiancé. Story 25. I was traveling solo, but I'd run into the same group for weeks across 5 different countries, and there was one guy I really liked. We were all on my hotel's rooftop, just chatting and drinking by the pool. He and I were flirting, as we'd been for weeks at this point. I teased him about something, and he responded, "Screw you." I turned my head to look directly at him. We were sitting next to each other, tilted my head and said, "Oh, I wish," all while maintaining eye contact. I smiled after I said it, thinking I was being super cute or whatever. He just sat there looking at me blankly, laughing out loud. I can't tell you how much time passed before I got a little embarrassed. It felt like forever, but realistically, it was 5 seconds maximum. My smile faded and I jumped up, calling for more drinks. Later, one of the girls in his group told me he was just taking time to process what I said and gauge my seriousness. English also wasn't his native language, and she added, "I know Mateo. He probably did not realize what you meant until later." Another guy in their group teased him about it a couple of days later when we met up again for their last dinner before they all headed back home. Even now, a couple of years later, and despite his friends saying otherwise, I still think he must not have wanted to be intimate because I feel like I was anvil over the head obvious. I cringe a little every time I remember it. Story 26. I found an attractive guy while backpacking and was interested in seeing if there was a mutual attraction. We went on a boat snorkel tour with a group and he stayed close to me all day, joking and becoming quite touchy after I initiated some playful contact. He'd playfully shove me in the water until I wrapped my arms and legs around him to avoid being dunked, and put his arm around me to tip me over and fall on him. He'd also always get me a drink when he got one for himself and kept me safe while we climbed some rocks at the beach. After we returned, he immediately came to find me in the dorms. I thought everything was sad as he'd responded so well to all my overtures. So that night, I separated us from the group and we sat on the beach. I leaned onto him, told him I was cold so he'd put his arm around me and got him to tell me some stories. He kept talking while literally cuddling me, and it became quite meta as he said that he always gets friend-zoned as soon as he meets nice girls. He expressed he was glad to have met me, but thought it would hurt him to continue spending time with me as he found me attractive and wanted me, but clearly didn't stand a chance. It was worded very definitively, not like an attempt to get me to disagree. He'd clearly made up his mind and thought about it for a while. That confused the hell out of me as he was lying on the beach, alone with me, literally cuddling me after what felt like a whole day of build-up to intimacy in the evening. While I was getting excited for some action all day, he had apparently prepared an entire speech in his ad to tell me that he didn't think we should continue to be so close, as he was attracted to me and didn't want to get frustrated. Well, I told him that maybe his analysis of the situation was a bit off, and I cuddled closer, trying to subtly move things forward. He was so sure of his interpretation that he actually sat up and said, "Stop it. I'm trying really hard to not get too excited and make things awkward. Please don't tease me like that." I asked what he thought I'd been doing all day, if not showing him I wanted him. He still insisted that he didn't like me teasing him with it. I asked why he thought I wanted to be alone with him on the beach after all the flirting on the boat trip, and he just said, "Nah, you weren't flirting. You were just being nice. That's why I have to leave, as she made me want you really bad, and that's not good." I literally had to hold his face to empathetically state my intentions for him to finally understand. I think his brain went into error mode. He got really flustered, kind of short-circuited, and nervously fiddled with his hands while I leaned in closer. I literally had to tell him that I wanted him to kiss me, be physically affectionate, and that I was ready to be intimate with him right there in my beach dress if he let me, as I'd been waiting for it all day and I was becoming increasingly excited by all the closeness and flirting. Then he finally understood. The first thing he said afterward was, "Oh, now I feel really stupid. Am I really that dense?" And I laughed so hard. We traveled together for a few weeks as we had a great connection, and then naturally parted ways when our travel plans diverged. It was a great time. Story 27. Not a girl, but I'm a very oblivious man. A few years ago, when I was still a bachelor, I had a girl who was a friend, and she would always want to hang out at night, despite being engaged. She'd always dress up, wear makeup, tag me in things on social media, and want to go on car rides to the ocean, among other things. Eventually, her fiancé asked if he could come hang out with us, and she said no. However, we would always drive by his workplace, and she wouldn't even talk to him. After a few weeks of this, she made Sims of us, and then created a third Sim of a girl I was interested in at the time, whom she would trap in the basement until it passed away. I didn't pick up on any of these signs until I told all of this to my now wife, laughing out loud. Story 28. I'm the guy in this case. We met in college and had the same commute since we lived quite close to each other. She would always hold my hand every time we were together. It even got to the point where her friends thought we were already a couple because she constantly held my hand. But I always just assumed she did that in a friendly way. This went on for about 6 months, until after we had drinks, she confessed she had a crush on me. I told her she'd just been drinking and that we'd talk about it tomorrow. Then pointed out how she'd been holding my hand for the past 6 months and I still hadn't noticed. We've been together for about 4 years now. I'm planning to propose to her next year when I buy a ring. For further context and how oblivious I was, she never held hands with any of her other male friends. She would also always wait for me for 1 to 2 hours just so we could commute together. Story 29. I'm a pretty clueless guy, and everyone I tell the story to thinks I missed a hand. I just thought a friend or coworker was having fun during a slow shift. To preface this, the bar where I worked had a fun, flirty atmosphere. The girls and guys were friendly, told suggestive jokes and made a lot of implications, none of which had any actual substance. Everyone there knew that Fox, that's me, was an idiot who didn't pick up on things. The guys I worked with would frequently punch me and tell me I was missing something. My cocktail waitresses would similarly tell me I was missing something before laughing at how clueless I was. Nobody explicitly thought this particular situation was a romantic interest. The game was between me and one of the cocktail waitresses. I'm the size of an NFL lineman. Think tall and big in the 350-pound range. She was maybe 5'6", 110 pounds at most. She would run at me from behind, jump, and slam into me as hard as she could. If she made me adjust my footing to stay upright, she won. If I didn't budge, I won. Also, if I saw her coming, I would just catch her and toss her onto one of the couches. Again, nobody explicitly told me, Fox, she's into you. So I figured it was just a silly thing she did when we were slow. But I told that story a couple of years after I left to a friend who said she was definitely going back to her friends, saying, I'm literally throwing myself at him and nothing. Story 30. Not a girl, but I had several, hey, you should ask me out moments that I just never acted on. I was very nervous when it came to girls, dating, and expressing my feelings. I was very excited for her to be my date for a school dance. I was an awkward dancer and just didn't get it, but she tried to get me to dance with her a lot. Another time, we went to a Halloween party and we all ended up watching a movie. She asked to lay her head down on my lap. We would sit together at lunch, and one day I was feeling really sick and resting my head in my arms. She started rubbing my back to make me feel better. One evening I was texting her and she said she was up watching a movie. I asked if I could come over and watch it. She quickly responded yes. This was late at night and a school night and my parents were asleep. I snuck out of the house and drove over to her place. We watched a movie together and sat close to each other. After it was over, I just said, that was great, and left. Needless to say, I could have had a really awesome high school girlfriend. Instead, I did not. Story 31. I was a freshman in college and the engineering department had a presentation we all had to attend before class started. I went by myself and sat in an end row next to a random girl who was also alone. We started with small talk, telling little jokes and such before it began, and we were having a good conversation. Throughout the entire slideshow, neither of us paid attention. We were stifling laughs the whole time. Afterward, we were walking out of the auditorium and strolling aimlessly around campus for a few minutes when she asked if I wanted to walk her classes with her and then go back to her dorm. I dumbly said, no thanks, I'm good, I need to get going. I didn't get her number or any way to contact her and never saw her again. Story 32. This was my now husband in high school. We were giving each other hugs for over a month, like long hugs and sometimes holding hands. He didn't ask me out. Okay. I then had my friends call and ask him who he liked. We were at a sleepover. He said no one. Then I asked in that flirty way, who do you love? He said, my dog. Boy, were you serious? I said screw this and got myself a date for a dance. Then he got mad and admitted his feelings. It took a total of 4 months for him to finally ask me out. I'm not sure how much more obvious it could have been. At that point, I wasn't even sure he had feelings for me. Story 33. After a group outing that felt like a semi-date, he dropped me off. I lingered in his car for a very long time, hoping he would make a move. When he didn't, I got out and turned around like, oh, I forgot my charger, and pretended to search his car for even more time. Still, nothing. After fake looking for a while, I was like, oh my god, sorry, it was in my bag, and lingered some more. Nothing. I finally concluded that he just wasn't ready to kiss me. We were teenagers and went inside. We still ended up getting together, celebrating 4 years today, and he admits that he apparently really wanted to kiss me, but genuinely couldn't figure out if I wanted him to. Facepalm. It wasn't until I said, babe, I turned back to look for a charger that was in my bag the whole time, that he finally reacted with an, oh no. In case you're curious, yes, I ended up making the first move. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.